Good morning, everyone. I know it's a very beautiful Friday morning, and that's an interesting day of the month, which is the very last day of a leap year. So it comes only once in 4 years. So the birthdays of these kind of celebrations come also very rarely. Even though it comes every year, this is going to be a very interesting day for us. And last year, when we first started BioNEST, it was very low key. But this is the first time we are trying to make it much more visible to everyone. And thank you very much all, one and all, for coming in. And may I request Professor Reddanna first come and welcome all the audience. And be seated in the, yes. And so, Professor Vice Chancellor, please be honored to come onto the dais, and Pro VC, Professor Agrawal, and Professor Prasad, please join, and Dr. Yogeswara garu. And may I request Professor Reddanna to come and give the welcome address about of this program.
So very good morning to you all. Professor Apparao, our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Professor Arun Agrawal, our Pro Vice Chancellor, Professor Prasad, the TIU Director, Professor Yogeswara, Dr. Narayanan, Dr. Ravi, Kumar, the speakers are in today's function, and faculty colleagues and distinguished invitees, scholars and BioNEST family members. It is indeed a great pleasure to welcome you all to the second Foundation Day or Anniversary Day celebrations of BioNEST Incubation Center. It is on this day 2 years back, that is in 2018, that BioNEST Incubation Center was formally inaugurated by Professor G. Padmanabhan in the presence of our Honorable Vice Chancellor, which was witnessed by many industry leaders like Dr. Prasad Reddy, Dr. Krishna Ella, Dr. Prem Kumar Reddy, a number of other dignitaries from the local institutions. It was inaugurated. Though formally it was inaugurated 2 years back, I think by the time we set up the entire infrastructure and then start incubating the first few incubatees, it took another 4 or 5 months. And in this last 1.5 years or so we have crossed many milestones in the sense that entire infrastructure was set up, and this was amplified further with the second phase of grants from the BIRAC. Initially, with whatever the grant that we have received, we have procured all the infrastructure. Then we felt that for the total expanded 20,000 SFT facility, we need much more infrastructure than what is required. And in fact, very favorably, the BIRAC has considered, and we have received the grants, and we started procuring the equipment also. And today, for all biology and biotechnology related activities, most of the basic infrastructure is in place. And we also have incubatees. Almost now 60% occupancy is, more than 60% occupancy is there in the last 1.5 years. And we have another 8 or 10 applications lined up. Probably in the early next month, we will going to have a meeting, and some more will be recruited. And all this after almost filtering many of the applications that we have received. Almost for more than 50% was the rejection. And so such is the competence that the competition was there for incubation space here. So with all the infrastructure in place and the ambience that was provided here in terms of the School of Life Sciences, the faculty here, the scholars, the students, and then the high-end infrastructure that is available in the School of Life Sciences, all within the same building, our incubatees can go and interact with many of the faculty and then start collaborations or consultancies, and also recruit the students either as employees or in the form of interns. All this is possible in this wonderful place, and as a result, it has become one of the most sought after incubation center in the country, though there are many such incubation centers. And all this is possible because of the full support that we received from the administration, specifically with our Vice Chancellor, and the guidance that we received from Dr. Yogeswara all these years, and the support that we received from the School of Life Sciences and our entire BioNEST team working together, and we could make this as one of the best incubation centers. Of course, that maybe a lot of others we will be hearing from our incubatees about the thing. And we are hoping that very soon that we will be having some seed funds. We have submitted an application which is being favorably considered. Hopefully very soon we will hear. And this incubation center will also probably receive the BIG status, where we could probably invite applications from our faculty and students, and then screen, and then we'll be able to fund. Many of our incubatees, I think, got either BIG or SBIRI or other venture fundings. I think the more details will be given by our CEO, Dr. Sreedhara. And we are hoping that in the next few, maybe in the next 1 year or so, that an integrated life science park will be coming within the campus. A proposal to this effect was submitted under Institute of Eminence. Hopefully that will be considered favorably. And this integrated life science park, with the support from the industries and from the university and the Institute of Eminence grants, almost 50%. If the 50% is coming from the Institute of Eminence, we are hoping that we will be able to raise another 50. This entire proposal is about 300 crores proposal. If that comes through in the campus, and I am sure many of our successful incubatees, while they are graduating, they will be able to move to this. And more detailed account on our achievements in the last 1 year, I think 1.5 year, Dr. Sreedhara will be giving. With this, I once again welcome you all to this second anniversary day celebrations, and would like to see you all throughout. Thank you.
As Professor Reddanna said already, that this is our second anniversary, and this is the chronology in which we are going through. As he told, that we inaugurated on the 28th of February, 2 years ago, and first anniversary we celebrated here, and today we are in the second one. And of course, you can see these beautiful paintings. I'll tell you the story behind it at the end of the seminar, a small update. So the first thing what university went through was, when they wanted to talk about entrepreneurship as a vertical on the campus, they went through these points. I don't want to call them as 10 commandments, but these are similar things that are required for any entrepreneurship to be nurtured over the period of a decade or even beyond. And the key players here, as what I said, on those 10 commandments for the BioNEST are Professor Apparao, the Honorable Vice Chancellor, and Professor Reddanna, whose relentless industry-academia interactions always made this is possible, with the everless guidance of Dr. Yogeswara. These are the key players which actually made this BioNEST possible. And what was the reason? The strong reasons are two things. One is revamping the existing entrepreneurial drive at the University of Hyderabad, and we are not new to it. About a decade ago, both TBI and TIDE, two other incubation centers have started, and BioNEST joined the late in 2017. And more importantly, taking advantage of the life science as a focus. BioNEST, which is actually a startup by BIRAC, which is a government agent, which is the Section 8 company of a Department of Biotechnology, actually started doing the entrepreneurship drive on everywhere in India, and they wanted to set up such BioNEST across India, about 50 of them by this year 2020. And we are somewhere in the middle of 28 or 29th one. So we caught up, and of course, these are the entire teams, as Professor Reddanna said, University of Hyderabad administration and the finance and the IAO team and the security, including the engineering team, they relentlessly made this structure possible. And of course, the School of Life Sciences and the newly formed department TIU, which gave enough support to us to sustain on this building. And last but not the least, the team members of BioNEST, which I'll take the names at the end. And we are the ones who actually were making it happen. So you can see that in 2017, the plans were there, structure was there on the top. It was earmarked for incubation and innovation on entrepreneurial trade. And of course, these were the ones in the initial photographs. And within 3 months from the time that we started, you can see the timeline. In November 2017, we got the approval for this BioNEST. And of course, and then immediately within February 2018, within 3 months, we made the structure almost ready for incubation, and it got inaugurated. And within 3 months from that point of time, by July, we established the entire facility, including the equipment. Some of them are seen here, excellent facilities, which is funded by the BIRAC. About 2 crores worth of instrumentation was initially available for all Incubatees which are to be used. And we also started our incubation by end of July and beginning of August. And we have a 10,000 square feet of facility meant for incubation, which consists of about 30 labs. So we were about to fill by August within one and a half year, we were about to able to do 30% of incubation, 40% of incubation. And of course, these are some of the Incubatees at that point of time. Many of you recognize yourselves here. Thank you very much for making this happen. And in order to maintain the entrepreneurial drive in a structural format, the think tank also came up with a structure, University of Hyderabad. Now there is a department of TIU that actually promotes the entrepreneurship on the campus and enhances the industry-academia interactions of all the research that is carried out on campus by the faculty. With that drive, the ASPIRE Section 8 company we formed one, because academic departments cannot do the business. So the Section 8 company, which is called ASPIRE, under which all incubation centers, and as what Professor Narayanan said, even the future parks, what we are proposing, will all come under this, and they all report into TIU. Next slide. Oh, okay. Sorry. So, moving on from last year to this year, we not only the first anniversary completed, but also we had done so many incubation activities, and of course promotion in various conferences, seminars, invited lectures, incubations, and so many visitors came. This promoted the entire BioNEST so far where it is. And within this one and a half year of time where we achieved, these are about 20 companies. There are 4 more companies are going to come soon. That fills, as what Professor Reddanna said, we're almost up to 60 to 70% occupancy. That leads us in these 5 different areas what we talk about in the life sciences, agriculture, biotechnology, healthcare, pharma, and IT, and allied areas related to that are the ones which are actually fostering our BioNEST Incubation Center. And of course, some visitors whom you can recognize also have visited. And we also did promotion by writing few articles in different journals about how we actually started our incubation and entrepreneurship activity, which is actually a guidance for other people. And of course, as the second year completes, we are getting into new areas. And these are some of the new instruments that we are actually building. And wherever the BioNEST we cannot achieve our competencies, but if the incubators require the additional facilities, we created something called BOM model, build, operate, and manage model. So some of these fermenters, which are not in the purview of our BioNEST budgets, we actually contacted the vendors, and they build the facility for us, and we just give the physical infrastructure for them. They build, they operate with their manpower, and then they actually manage the entire thing, but not only for the incubatees, but also for School of Life Sciences. Even outsiders can come and use it. And these are all startup facilities. The 50-liter fermenter, the 16-liter fermenter. Thanks to Anil for making all these efforts, making this happen to us. And coming back to the funding, just quickly, so far what we have spent is, this is the entire budget that has been given, 875 crores by the BIRAC, and university has put about good amount of money into the building, about 8 crores. That's why you can see that these, the non-recurring and recurring costs, this is the total budgets that we have. And the reason why you have these two ones are, initially they go only 4 crores and the university has put more money. Then moving from 10,000 square feet to 20,000 square feet needed additional infrastructure and then building capacity and everything. That's why we wrote a request to BIRAC, and thanks to BIRAC through Dr. Yogeswara and Professor Reddanna and then the team that they put through efforts, we were able to get this much of a grant from them for the next 5 years. And these are some of the instruments that we already bought it from the previous budget, which are already available for all the incubatees, free of use, free of charge. And these are the new list of instruments that we have put in, which we'll be procuring towards in the next 3 months. So these cumulative facilities will be available for all incubatees at the BioNEST to be used in the near future. Going forward, what we want to do? We want to active incubation will be completed. That means that we reach up to 80 to 85% occupancy within the next 3 to 6 months. That is our goal, and we'll be able to achieve that. And expansion into graduation companies. So how do we fit in our graduated companies from the incubation? Can we retain them, or can we provide an alternative solution? And one of the solutions Professor Reddanna already mentioned, that if our biotech park comes eventually, they could go into that. And second one is expansion activities of entrepreneurship for funding and innovation in life sciences. So funding not only just come from BioNEST, but also we are trying to look at even other sources for funding, like as Professor Reddanna said, seed funding, or even AICs or other things, where we can actually add more value to the existing incubation activities. And of course, we have to reach our self-sustenance, because this funding is given for 5 years, but we are here for next decades to come in. Like we want to survive as the University of Hyderabad. It's been here for 50 years, reached its eminence, and we also wanted to reach that kind of a goals, where we want to be like be the beacon kind of a model, where everybody should look at us at BioNEST as a role model for them. And then, as what Professor Reddanna already mentioned, that we are talking about the faculty enrichment program, and even casual the students' entrepreneur activities through pre-incubation and other activities, which University of Hyderabad is starting, which BioNEST will be a part of that. And of course, more to come. And with this, I thank you very much for the quick update of what BioNEST we have done. And so many activities are there, but we don't have to talk about it. But this is what gives us a glimpse of what BioNEST is in the past 2 years, where we have started and where we achieved so far. Thank you very much. And may I request Dr. Arun Agrawal to give a update? I'll come to that. Yeah. So, turn the lights.
Honorable and Vice Chancellor, Professor Apparao, Professor Reddanna, Dr. Sreedhara, Dr. Yogeswara, Dr. G.S. Prasad, invited speakers, guests, staff, faculty, students, a very warm welcome to you all. I am very happy to be here today to be with you to celebrate the Foundation Day of the University of Hyderabad BioNEST Incubator on completion of its 2 years. Since its launch on the National Science Day by Professor G. Padmanabhan, who was a former director of Indian Institute of Science, on 28 to 2018. And to facilitate startups and entrepreneurship ventures, as was just informed by Sreedhara, to facilitate startups and entrepreneurship ventures, a large plug-and-play UH-BioNEST bioincubator with 20,000 square feet area was launched in the University of Hyderabad. The BioNEST in turn was launched by BIRAC, which comes under the DBT, and with a vision that focused on fostering the biotech innovation ecosystem in the country. In order to harness our research potential and to promote innovation and entrepreneurship among faculty and students, our university has established a technology industrialization and entrepreneurship unit called TIU at the university, which under that there is a non-profit Section 8 company, as was informed by Sreedhara, called ASPIRE, was also incorporated to engage in technology business related activities. The university has also made its entry into entrepreneurship through TBI, which is initially funded by DST. We have TIDE, which was funded by Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology. And at present, we have this ASPIRE-BioNEST. So these three incubators are tied to ASPIRE, and ASPIRE is through TIU, and TIU is integrated with the University of Hyderabad structure, which was shown in the slides. So all these three incubators are currently under the TIU, working within the framework of the University of Hyderabad. So last year, I wanted to also inform that last year, Ministry of Human Resources Development, MHRD, Government of India, has established what they call as MHRD's Innovation Cell, called MIC, which is to systematically foster the culture of innovation amongst all higher education institutions in India. And the primary mandate of MIC was to encourage, inspire, and nurture young students by supporting them to work with new ideas while they are in the formative years in higher educational institutions. So for that, MIC has created what they call as institutional innovation cells. So an institutional innovation cell has been established in the University of Hyderabad. So we are now trying to see how the TIU and IIC, which is on the campus, can integrate in some way so that the students can also be encouraged as part of their activities. So I hope to see that TIU and IIC can tie up and provide opportunities to our students to pre-incubate. I just heard Sreedhara mentioning about the pre-incubation opportunities that are being planned. I understand a few months back we did have a pre-incubation a kind of competition. So probably we can have some kind of a tie-up between IIC and TIU and see how it can be taken forward. Why I'm saying is that the students, the university has already started a process where especially in our Vice Chancellor, Professor Apparao, has been encouraging students to participate in Smart Indian Hackathon. So Smart Indian Hackathons events was launched in 2018 by Government of India. So this is the third Smart Indian Hackathon in 2020 which is going to be conducted, for which the proposals from the students have been filtered and uploaded on the portal of SIH 2020. So what I was thinking was that these students who participate in SIH events, because because these students are asked to solve some of the pressing problems faced within various ministries, departments, industries, PSUs, NGOs to create what we call as world-class solutions for some of the top organizations, including industries in the world, thus helping to hire the best minds from across the nation. So it will help that in case there is a kind of, through the Smart Indian Hackathon channel, if the students can be, we can have a filtering of where a pre-incubation is also given as a filter, and then probably as part of, instead of going for an employment, they can try to go for entrepreneurship thing. I just wanted to also mention that the last edition of SIH 2019 saw over 5 million students from various colleges compete for the top prizes at 65 plus locations. So it's a very fairly big event which is being conducted by the Government of India to inspire young minds towards solving problems which are at a national level. So I'm happy to inform that one of our student group won the first prize of rupees 1 lakh during the SIS 2019, which was held in Gujarat someplace. So I hope such encouragements to students will motivate them further, so that they will have the freedom to pursue their own vision, will have the control and flexibility over their own time, will have the opportunity and satisfaction of creating jobs for others, will have the sense of pride and fulfillment in accomplishing things. So I'm sure ASPIRE-BioNEST will also provide needed fuel to launch the University of Hyderabad towards its goal to compete with global institutions under this Institute of Eminence tag, and will also prepare our students to be academically brilliant, well equipped with needed entrepreneurship skills, and to fulfill our mission of national needs and global standards. Thank you.
May I request the Honorable Vice Chancellor, Professor Apparao, to come and give his few address about the BioNEST and the entrepreneurial activities.
Good morning, everybody. It's a very happy occasion to be with all of you on an occasion where we are celebrating the second anniversary for the BioNEST. Sreedhara has shown the journey that we have gone through, and Professor Agrawal has put in front of us the objectives with which we have formed. And for me, I can say Professor Reddanna has been a kind of an inspirer to promote this culture in the campus. And fortunately, we got the advantage of working with Dr. Yogeswara. If something has happened, as Sreedhara rightly put it, it's because of our association with Dr. Yogeswara Garu and the interest for several years. It's not just the interest of Professor Reddanna is not of a recent one. I can definitely say for more than 2 decades, he has nurtured that. But then for it to come to reality and for us to get into promoting that culture from our side only has come late in terms of BioNEST, while we had the TBI and the Tide some years ago that we have started. A dream that we have, actually, it's a dream for an institution which has grown enviously faster than any other institution set up at the same age, at the same time. This university has grown much faster. And in the sense, growth is not in terms of the numbers. Growth is in terms of the quality. That was the benchmark of this university. And an institution which has grown faster, like some of the best institutions that anybody appreciate in the world, the Indian Institute of Technologies and the Institute of Science, we are now standing by the side of these best of the IITs and IISc because of the quality consciousness that this university has kept from the beginning. So therefore, there is a need for such an institution to have a dream, to also promote a parallel culture which is essential for the country and more importantly for the faculty and the students in the university. It is very much essential. The world is moving in one direction and best of the institutions abroad and India are moving in. I do not know when Professor Yogeswara will take us to the next level. When I visited Chennai IIT Park, Research Park, some of you, I'm sure you would have visited. Those who have not visited, I will advise you to visit, to appreciate and feel the need and the necessity for such kind of a culture in a good institution. We are unfortunate that somebody who was actively about to support us, our effort for a research park, is not now heading the Institute of Higher Education. But then I am still optimistic that we will have even the present Secretary Higher Education will be favorable favorable to our idea that we should have a research park, which is to me, I do not know whether in the next 5 years that I will be at University of Hyderabad, whether I will see that research park of that stature. But if it is 1/10 of it, if we can establish at University of Hyderabad, it will be an achievement for us. And it is on these occasions that we can recall the need for such things and motivate ourselves, look forward to and work in that direction. Some time ago, when there was no TIU, only R&D was there, we were filing patents one after the other. But now I see there is an increased activity. Each one of us are now thinking of first option, should we now file a patent before we submit the manuscript for publication? That's a good beginning. And we were struggling to find a resource to support that. But then with our efforts, thanks to Prasad's proposal, the Technology Enabling Center now, which is funded to University of Hyderabad at a very generously, I would say, to the tune of 5 crores they have sanctioned us recently. Now there is no limitation for our faculty to file these, to get that support from the institution to file the patents. So unless we create this ecosystem, there will never be an opportunity for us to climb the steps one after the other and to reach the goal. And it is in this context I feel so happy that the BioNEST has made a good progress in the last 2 years of its existence. And in general, it has promoted the culture of entrepreneurship and enhanced the visibility of our activities on this entrepreneurship and incubation in the campus. And I saw a few teachers. There were a couple of teachers at the TBI, but now there are more teachers engaged with the BioNEST. And this is still, I consider, is a beginning. And a good number of our students are able to go what you call one floor up. They are now moving one floor up. Either they were in the first floor or in the second floor. Now they are working in the third floor of the School of Life Sciences. And that's something which will happen seamlessly when there are more companies, and more companies which come with technology-intensive incubation activities. There will be more and more demand for the students who are trained in this school with excellent curricular design. These will be most sought after students for those activities. So there will be, as we move along, I dream that more and more of amalgamation and more of buzzing activity with this BioNEST, particularly with a huge School of Life Sciences with huge infrastructure and close to 700 people or 750 people working in biology, teachers, postdocs, women scientists, master students, PhD students, project fellows. There may not be a place where 750 close to active PG plus, and most of them with in research at one place in one building. This may be the only place in India where we have such kind of manpower. And the manpower is not an ordinary manpower, it is the cream of the cream. When you advertise for a faculty position, you know what kind of applications you get. When you advertise for PhD openings, you know what kind of applications you get. When you advertise for master's program, you know from how many states you get the applications from the students. So the cream of the cream working here, and which will be a strong base for the companies that will be coming, that will be working with us in BioNEST, and for the faculty with close to 60 now, each one of them, very few of them have overlapping areas, otherwise each one is an expert in an area. And so many different consultancies they can offer. They can partner for joint ventures. Several such things can happen, and it is only, we have began our journey, and I think in the next couple of years to come, we will see more and more of this, and when we meet for the 3rd anniversary or 4th anniversary, I'm sure we all will feel much happy, and also maybe we'll take pride at that time that BioNEST has made a significant landmark contribution for this culture on this campus, both for entrepreneurship and innovation. And I only personally feel happy that I have become a part of it, because it is the time, any other Vice Chancellor at this stage would have done the same thing, and I only feel happy that I am just part of it in the journey that the university is making in this direction. And it's a new culture, not much familiar in a university system. The culture, what we are talking, is very new in a university system. Yesterday when I went to ChemFest, many of us know it's one of the best schools in the country, best school, and even in the university, many of us regard it as the best school, that they do so well. But I was telling them, look, We are very good, no doubt, until yesterday. But today, the times are changing. Times are changing. How much are we close to, how much closely we are working with industry, and how much we are promoting our students and faculty to promote the entrepreneurship, and how much are we moving towards internationalization. These are the three things which are being measured time and again for an institution to see whether this is growing healthily or not in the current situation. So I was telling them that, if we were good, we may have to change our approach, if not switching the gears. We have to change our approach and fine-tune our approach, because we can't find fault with them or with anybody in the university, because that's the typical culture of a university, which has been there for ages in the country. Nobody will think that why I should be talking to an industry person. Nobody will be enthusiastic about it. But that's not what it is today, and it has to be. You may not have a contribution which directly appears a product that you can take it to, but what is wrong in your talking to the industry? What is wrong in your partnering with industry, and help each other to share the knowledge and facilitate the development of newer products based on your expertise to another individual or a company which is set up under the incubators to flourish. You don't do it, let them do it, you help them. That's the culture that is coming up. And if you are confident, I shouldn't use the word confident. If you want to take a chance, yes, you are ready. We made a policy in place. We put a policy in place. And again, thanks to Yogeswara Garu, we have put a policy in place in the university. No other university has done it at that time, and we have done it. So we are a kind of a bridge between the traditional universities and the IITs and IISc culture. And if we want to continue to be on the top, all of us have to understand, when I say that we have registered a Section 8 company, Aspire, so many people say, oh, you have done it at University of Hyderabad. That's the kind of feeling that others have when we say that a university has set up a company. These are important things for us to be doing, and for us to understand and appreciate the need for those things in the campus. And if somebody is a short-sighted person and looks for what am I getting tomorrow, we will be mistaken grossly. This system will give us rich dividends, for sure. Rich dividends over a period of time. And sometimes they will be unimaginable magnitude, the dividends that come. And some of them may be indirect benefits that we get, which nobody will be able to measure in terms of rupees that you are getting. So with this, I would like to congratulate the BioNEST on its 2nd anniversary, and with a positive hope that it will not only double its activities with the further support that they have received from BIRAC, but also maintain the quality of it without any compromise at any stage, as much as the University of Hyderabad does. And I wish good luck to all, and good luck to BioNEST for its activities. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for such wonderful and encouraging words, which will give us more impetus to enhance our activities and the entrepreneurship on the campus for long years to come in. And may I request Dr. Yogeswara to give his keynote talk on knowledge that enhances the entrepreneurial systems. Arun, column is there.
Good morning to all. Professor Apparao, the Vice Chancellor, Professor Arun Agrawal, the Pro VC, Professor Reddanna, Professor Prasad, and Dr. Sreedhara, faculty, students, and ladies and gentlemen, Incubatees. It gives me great pleasure to talk to you about the subject that I have chosen. Although I have been talking to you on and off, but this gives me a special feeling for me to be before you and talk to you about the subject. I chose a topic as the startups in knowledge economy. And why I have chosen that particular topic, as I go into this thing, you would appreciate. At the turn of what I would call is that last century, you would find that India was largely an agrarian economy. What is that we are looking in agrarian economy? We used to always pray for what I call is that timely, good rains, so that our agricultural productivity will be very high. At the time of the independence, the government has taken a conscious decision to move into an industrial economy, because by that time, Western world has already gone into the industrial economy, and then they started prospering because of the industrial economy. So India also took a decision, besides encouraging the agriculture and other things, they wanted to enter into industrial economy. We have not been very successful in industrial economy. The reasons are very simple. At that time, there are two things are required for an industrial economy. One is the technology. The other one is required is that funds, money, basically. And unfortunately, both we had lacked during that period. Neither we had technologies, nor we had resources to buy the technologies and set up. So the government has done, what they have done is that basically they tried to control the entire industrial development of the country through what I would call regulations and other things. The industrial licenses used to be given to a specific, some people only used to get, and the production levels have been controlled, technology imports have been controlled. And another thing, those things that has impacted that industrial development, what we had thought about, is that at that time, because of our overall GDP is being very low, and our main concern used to be to feed the people. So a lot of imports of the food stuff used to be imported into the country, and we had a very precious, very little foreign exchange in that during that time. From that, then came 1991, where we had done the economic liberalization, and from that, it has now opened up the entire economy for the international community and as well as to the Indian community itself. As a result, we started moving into what I would call into a knowledge economy. Slowly, but steadily, we entered into knowledge economy. In a knowledge economy, what you would require is that one is the creation of new knowledge and application of the new knowledge into some technologies is what is required in a knowledge economy. Now let's look into my next slide. Here shows how the science, technology, and the innovation are related in this particular effort. Science is basically is what I would call is an advancing of the knowledge and scholarship driven. Whereas the same knowledge, when you translate into an application, what it will become is a technology. And technology is demand driven. If there is a demand, technology will gets more prosperous. And innovation is to maintain that leadership in that particular technology that you would require to continuously, constantly improve upon that technology and maintain the leadership is what is the innovation. So all these three put together, if you look into it, on one side it creates value, on the other side it creation of knowledge, on the other side it creates jobs. So that's how science and technology can play a major role in what I would call is a knowledge economy. But for a knowledge economy to take place, there requires certain amount of pull. The pull from the Indian context, what are those pull factors from the Indian context? Let's look into some of those things. India is emerging as the third largest economy. But because of our population, our per capita income is not going to be very high. So what does it mean? Our buying power is not going to be as good as the Western world. But our population, because of the internet and other things, they would like to have the best of the best products, but at very affordable prices. So there is a great opportunity for the Indian population to enter into and develop products that are affordable for the Indian population. We, as a country, we are 1.3 billion. That means we have such a great market. If you can serve only your market, you have such a huge market, you don't have to go anywhere else. That itself will give you so much of this thing. That's the reason why many of the multinationals, everybody wants to start their company or their shop here, because of the huge market that we have. And the huge market also has its own peculiar needs. I think we need to cater to those peculiar needs by developing new technologies, and it offers a great opportunity for us. The changing consumer behavior. Now, if you look into the consumer behavior has been changing. For our generation, at least for my generation, and many of us, some of us are in the same category. If we buy a thing, if we buy a car, or if we buy some furniture, it is for life. We never change it because we could not afford buying it, replacing everything. But today generation is not like that. Today generation buys something, in 5 years' time they want to change. Take for example, mobile is the best example. No kid would like to use the same mobile for more than 2 or 3 years. He would like to change it. He will go and sell that in the second market and then buy a new one. That's how the things are changing. Indeed, if you can look into, the China has used this consumer behavior as an example, and what they did was they captured the whole entire world's market of toy market, basically kids' toys, you know. So what they did was that if you look at a kid, you buy a toy and give it to him, that kid basically plays with maybe about 2 months, 3 months, at best 6 months. Afterwards, he is no more interested in the toy. He would like to have a new toy. So basically, the child psychology is that every 6 months or 3 months, he would like to have a new toy with him. But some of the companies which are in the West, for example, Lego is one of the company. You buy a Lego set, that will come for ages. I had one set, I bought it in about 30 years back, it still works. And it's as good as what I bought. So but the child is not playing. So what they did, China, is that they wanted to develop the entire toy market, keeping it in the mind of the child psychology and child behavior. And they built their toys only survives for maximum 1 year to 2 years. Afterwards, the toy will not function. So, and they crashed the price to such low levels that they could capture the entire world's market. I mean, this what is happening in the behavioral changes is creating new markets, and you need to create new products to meet the new market's demands. Now, new IPR regime. In 2005, we had entered into, we put in our new IP regime into the market. What it tells? Basically, you can't copy anymore the technologies that what we have been used to do. If you look into our entire drugs and pharmaceutical market, our drugs and pharmaceutical companies that have come up all by basically I say copying the technologies. We have not put in a one molecule into the market on our own. All the molecules that have come from the abroad, we just copied it without doing any research and introduced into the market. At that time, the intellectual property regime that we had encouraged that kind of a copying. But now you cannot copy any of those technologies. So what does it mean? It requires that you would need to generate your own new technologies. You would need to generate your own new innovations. So that gives you another great opportunity for somebody to enter into this particular area. we are in a peculiar situation compared to many other countries. Our industrial sector is largely dominated by small and medium enterprises. And if you look into the small and medium enterprises, basically their profits are not very high. Their margins are very low, their profits are very low. So as a result, what happens is that they do not have that kind of, or rather I would put it, they can't even afford to invest good amount of money into the R&D. So what they look is, they look towards others to give the technologies or knowledge to them. So that's where that there are opportunities that comes into in trying to fill that particular gap and provide that knowledge what is required for the small and medium industries. Another great opportunity that gives you for people, those who wants to enter into this particular arena. So these are some of the things, but there could be many others, but I put together this thing. Now, for any of that kind of a, if you look into any of the knowledge economy, there are three factors that are required. One is basically that knowledge generators. Second, that you require knowledge absorbers, those who take that knowledge and translates into technologies. The third one is the governmental support. How the government will support this such kind of knowledge generation as well as knowledge absorption is another of these things. Now, if you look into the knowledge generators, fortunately in our country we had a large number of institutions or research organizations which are publicly funded or privately funded. Overall, that we have a significant number of institutions that are generating the new knowledge. This knowledge is there, but unfortunately, translation of this particular knowledge is not happening to the extent that is desirable in this particular country. So if you look into the number of universities, almost we have about 900 universities, CSR has got about 40 laboratories, DRDO about 50, all these people, everyone has been trying to do knowledge generation is being done by these people. Now, if the knowledge is generated, who are the knowledge absorbers? The knowledge absorbers are basically, you have a few of them. One is industry, other ones are the startups, the third ones are strategic sectors. Who are the strategic sectors is defense and Department of Atomic Energy and space research and other things. And you have the society. Give him anything, society will proliferate and horizontally transfer the entire technology. Best examples is the agricultural technologies, which are normally absorbed by the society and then translated into horizontally across things. And the government in many cases becomes a major what I call absorber of the technology. If you develop a good product, and if the government, vaccines is perhaps one of the best example of the government support. Basically, government is the biggest buyer of the under the universal immunization program. They are the biggest buyers of the all various vaccines. So that has spurred the entire industry to what I call is develop the new vaccines and try to put it into the universal immunization. So government has played a major role there in that as a basically absorber of the knowledge and absorber of the technology for the public good and public this thing. Now, if we go into the next one, I just took as one of the, because it's a BioNEST and biosciences this thing, I took was one of them. What is the government? How much is the government is supporting in this kind of an encouragement? Look at DBT has created a separate arm as a Section 8 company, what I call is a BIRAC, Biotechnology Industry Research Assistance Council, and under which they have created a number of programs. Most of these programs are meant for industry. Most of these programs are either a collaborative program between an industry and academic institution or only for industry, and they have created. And they have been supporting, for example, you look into the BIG or you look into the SBIRI and other things. Many of these programs have been supporting liberally various things. Indeed, you can start with an idea and move up to a commercialization product by using one scheme or other. That's the beauty of the entire BIRAC schemes. So that means government has come out with several schemes which would ultimately take you from almost from an idea to ultimately to take it to the commercial stage of development. And that's what this. In addition to that, they also support you with the seed fund, they also support with the ACE fund, variety of funds. They would in turn would invest into various biotech companies and other things. So that's how they have created what I call is an arm which supports the entire industrial research or what I call technological research or knowledge intensive research that they have supporting in that particular thing, which would ultimately bring out the products and other thing to the market. Now, the question that comes is that since we are largely talking about the BioNEST and the startups, why startups? Why not many other industries, what we said in that particular thing? Why only the startups? If you look into the Indian industry is risk averse. Basically, you will see Indian industry would not invest in R&D too much. Because what happens is that they all know that R&D is very expensive, very risky. At the end of the long drawn, and at the end, you have what I call is uncertain. At the end, you don't know whether ultimately you will get a product or not. So they are not interested in investing in that kind. What they had is that what I call is a trader mentality. What they would come, they would go and buy a technology and use the technology for over 10 years. And once the technology is becoming obsolete, what they will do, they will go again with a shopping bag and buy another technology, advanced technology, bring it and start doing it. This is what I would call is a buy and sell is a trader mentality that they have. They are not investing into the R&D and creating new technologies in the country. And that's one of the reason we didn't have really a good experience of creating new technologies in this country and introducing those new technologies into the world scenario. So, but if you look into on the contrary, startups has got a great risk, appetite. They can take a good amount of risk. And in fact, some studies which have been studied and showed that the risk-taking capacity of the startups is much, much higher than the normal existing companies. So that's the reason why the startups. And for startups, it's do or die. Either you succeed or you fail. And ultimately, you have to, there is no option for them. Once they enter into that, they have to succeed. So they work day and night and then try to make it as successful as possible. So that's where the startups has an advantage and better than the existing companies as far as taking a knowledge and translating that into a technology, or coming out with the idea and translating that into a technology. Now, if you look into many of the large companies used to have central research R&D stations. Those who have been abroad and other thing are multinational used to have central R&D stations, they used to call. And many of these people have been closing these central R&D stations. What they are trying to look at is who are the people that developing the new knowledge. If a startup is developing a new knowledge, they go and tie up with those startups and then take the knowledge. Or they buy out that particular company and they take the knowledge and move it forward, because they know they are good at taking a knowledge and then translating it and moving it forward. So they stopped their R&D and they are looking for this kind of knowledge from various startups. So the startups are much better placed in really generating the knowledge and then selling that at a particular stage. You take an idea, build it up to certain level and sell it to a company. And that company will take it and you move on to do another into this thing. I think our Narayanan is one of the example here. He will explain in this thing. He started a company and he sold it to Tatas. And he moved on to, and he started another company. Even Ravi Kumar has also done the similar kind of a thing. He did not sell, but he has started company after company. So this is what is the trend becoming. So this is the opportunity even for the faculty. You start with an idea and you take it to some stage, and you are not comfortable in taking what I call into the product to the market, dispose of the company to a bigger company and you make your money. He further makes his money after developing the product, but you can move on to another idea. So this is what is happening, and this is the trend. That means the knowledge, the R&D activities are now being dispersed, becoming universal. Everywhere the R&D activities are taking place, all startups basically do the R&D activities. So that's what is happening, this thing. Now, the startups, if they are there, it develops what I would call is the local economy, and it provides jobs. It creates certain amount of, a ecosystem that ultimately helps in generating industrial activity in that particular area. So this is how I personally feel is the startups are becomes very important. Now, what are the characteristics? All the startups have certain characteristics. What are the characteristics of the startups? Now, if you see early stage technology, outcomes are very uncertain. That's one of the characteristics of the startup. If everything is known, outcome is known, then it is no more a startup really. If you look into proof of concept yet to be demonstrated, that proof of concept is yet to be demonstrated is one of the characteristics of the startup. Continuous involvement of inventors is essential. Unless you have the continuously involved, then you will find it very difficult for that particular idea to take it to the next higher level. Adoption may require changes in practices. When I say that adoption may require changes in practices, sometimes the governmental practices or governmental systems have to change. Certain times your practices have to change. How you are visualizing a certain thing should be done. It involves a huge risk. It involves a huge risk that he is taking at the characteristic of a startup. Now, there are I visualize the 4 types of startups. Quite a few people think that the startup means only the idea which is there, a new idea, that is only startup. It is not necessarily. A startup need not be a new idea. But the first class of startups are startups based on new markets. There is a product that is available somewhere, but it's not available in your market. You would like to develop that particular product and introduce into the market. So the best, that is also a startup. The best examples for this particular thing is your Flipkart, Ola, and some of other ones like Swiggy and all those things. I would call it most of the e-commerce based startups are all nothing but a startup of first category, because these are all available at somewhere. All that they are trying to do, introduce into this market which is non-existent. That's what they are doing. That's what I consider is all e-commerce. There is no newness in this. Concept is known. Technology is also known, but all that they are trying to replicate and duplicate here and introduce into this particular economy. Startups based on new knowledge and innovation. That's what we are trying to encourage in the BioNEST. Is basically this is to take a new idea, a new knowledge, and then try to develop that particular idea into a technology and introduce into the market is what is the second category. Now, the third category is startups based on improved product or service. You have existing product. For example, mobile is one of the best example. You had a 2G at that time only. You had 2-3 functions in the mobile. Then it has become better version. Then it has become today it is smartphone. You don't even most of functions you do it on your this thing. This is all evolving. The same product at one time it was a Nokia which was very popular. Now it is no more Nokia. Nobody hears the Nokia name. Now everybody hears about Samsung or iPhone and other things. So you say you are coming out with a new phone or a new this thing which is already in the market, is known with the new features. You are coming and trying to capture the market. Is the new kind of the third kind of a startup. The fourth kind is the one which I personally feel is the copycats. You always have somewhere whatever you do or this thing, there will be some copycats and there will be something will be there on that particular thing. So these are the kind of startups that you have. When you start a startup, always there will be certain amount of what I would call some of the important elements that are required for a startup. That development of a product or service, intellectual property, speed of innovation, time to market, how fast you go, how slow or fast you will be. If you are ahead of the market, then also you will be a failure. You are after the market came into the picture, then you are also failure. You have to be right time it. And there are several examples which in my next slide I will try to give 1 or 2 examples. You have to have the flexibility. Today you start something and that particular product, suppose say somebody else is made much more advanced, then you have to change your product or you have to tweak your product in such a way that you will still be into the market. Environmental and regulatory issues, very important aspect. Normally people don't think about these things when they are starting a project. Then they have to think about this particular thing. For example, IP strategy is also another important aspect which they don't take into right in the beginning. First their concentration is always on the idea and try to translate that, but they don't look into these things. But these two are more important, I personally feel, than the idea itself. And risk tolerance and rewards, these are the things. Each one of them normally I do is one slide, but for the paucity of the time I will try to take 1 or 2 only into this particular thing. Strategies for developing. Quite often what happens is that we develop products which are, even today, even IT industry does the same thing, what Western world needs. Western worlds want this particular thing, so let us develop this, let us do this. Even in the earlier days, we used to do several of the products, whatever we develop. There is a market in the West, so we will try to export it to the West and we try to do. I think that's the wrong strategy. What we need to do is a strategy that what our population requires. Develop a product for your country needs. If you develop a product for your country needs, I can tell you that other spin-off benefits will be others. Just as we take whatever Western people have developed, whether it fits us or not, we will still buy those things and still use those particular things. Similarly, Western people, if they require, they buy it from us. So that should be the strategy, and we should always look at to do. And there is always a confusion I always feel that some of the people have is that whether to develop a product or to a service. So they are not deciding. No, I will do service, I will do product and service. This won't work. You have to decide whether you want to do a product or you want to do a service. If it is a service, you have to develop your entire service in that fashion. If you want to do a product, you have to develop entire product in that. These two are different. When we have to first of all decide on that particular thing. Do not develop the products keeping the Western markets in mind. Factor in the competition from imports in developing. Quite often what happens is that we develop a product with ignoring the likely imports, particularly from China. What you do, you develop a product and you have come to a pricing, and then at that particular stage, you introduce the product and you will find that the other products which are coming from the imported is offering at much lower price. So there won't be market for you. So you have to be very careful in while you are developing your product, what are the competitors, who are the competitors, and what is their pricing. I'll give you a beautiful example. When I was working with a company, very early days of mine, we developed a product called sebacic acid. This is basically used in the space applications and variety of these things. So the large customer used to be the US, basically for this particular product. And why did we develop this product? Because castor oil is a raw material for this particular thing. Castor oil is India's second largest producer of India. So we developed the product, and we offered at a particular price, maybe somewhere around 70 rupees or 72 rupees we offered per kilo. Our product is excellent, quality wise and everything. And we sent it to them, they improved our quality and everything, but price wise, they said it is very high. Because they said that China is giving us at 50 rupees per kilo. This is the thing. And then we went back to the drawing table and then tried to work it out, how could they make it at 50 rupees, taking international prices into consideration and international costing. There is no way, even taking theoretical yields, full theoretical yield 100%, there is no way that they can make it at 50 rupees. But they are offering at 50 rupees. So their economy operates in a different way. So you can't help it, you cannot compete with them. Believe me, that 3 crore rupees, that investment that has gone into, including a pilot plant, has scrapped. Just because there is no demand in the country. So that's where we make a mistake of going into developing products that are basically for focusing on the Western world. There are other people who do it because they do it for specifically develop for them and then give it to them. That's a different model, but I'm saying as a competitive product, if you are trying to develop, you will have these problems will come into the issue that we have to keep it in mind. Create a brand of your own. Normally we don't, when we try to do some product, we don't create our own brand. And we find it very difficult to create a brand. I visited as one of the expert in Tirupur industrial estate area. I don't know whether you people know about Tirupur. Tirupur is one of the largest what you call in the country hosiery manufacturing units. That Tirupur is produces all kinds of products for the international market and exports it almost about 25,000 crores they export. So I was checking with one of the fellow who was trying to make what I would call boxers. You know boxers, no? Many of you know. So I asked him, what is your price that you sell it? He said something like 1.79 pounds or something. So 1.79 pounds, that he does everything. That he stamps it on the company name, whichever the company is offering, he packages and then sends it to them. So all that they have to put it in the shops and sell it at their brand. You know what they sell it at that? They sell it at 15 pounds, each of the one. So I asked him, how much is your margin? He says, I get about 15% of my margin. But what is his margin? You can imagine what is his margin. Because he has a brand and that brand sells. And we didn't have a brand, so we can't sell as a brand. So what is important is that when we are trying to develop a product, that we must create a brand of our own. If you don't create a brand of our own, I think we will be landing into problems. I think brand becomes very, very important. So we should be conscious about developing a brand into this thing. Technology in licensing and out licensing. Quite often we become very, very possessive of the technology, particularly with the scientists. What happens is they emotionally gets connected to the technologies and they don't like to, part with it. We developed a product called triple play broadband technology. And Professor Agrawal will easily understand triple play broadband technology. The team was led by Vijay Bhatkar, the current, you must be knowing about Vijay Bhatkar. This product was very good, extremely good, and it was doing that, use the telephone lines, existing telephone lines to send email, voice, and then all the three of the features that it does, TV and. But then they wanted to scale it up, the entire technology. They could not scale it up. They could confine only one region. By the time they wanted to really go into some other thing, another thing, new technologies have come, this technology has become obsolete, and they lost the entire technology. Important thing is at the right time, if you have right people, sell off the technology or license it out. You don't have to completely lose all your interest. You can license it out to the people and make money through that particular process. Similarly, you should also be willing to in-license technologies. If necessary, that you get, whenever there is something which you find your competitor has a better advantage, you just in-license that particular technology for you and then further develop it. If we don't do these things, then you will be loser at the end. So we have to keep our eyes open for the developments that are taking place around us, and then try to do that particular thing. And scaling of the product and service becomes very, very important. Quite often we don't understand the difficulties that are involved in the scaling of a product and providing the services all India basis or broad this thing. And quite a few examples are there. I don't want to go into the details, otherwise I will be eating too much of time. So that another important point I would like to tell you is that many of the retired scientists, particularly abroad, those who had experience of developing a product and putting into the market, they are all there. They are all retired. They will be just simply available, and you should hire that kind of people if you can find somebody, because they will be invaluable experience they will give you, and they can suggest you something. So this is something which would be very, very useful. As I told you that intellectual property, normally we don't consider, but it should become a strategy, integral part of at the time of the development itself. Otherwise you will lose out. If you don't protect your IP, you will be vulnerable, because others can copy your technology and then launch your technology. And most importantly, if you have IP, your valuation goes up. Your company valuation goes up if you have an IP. If you don't have an IP, they don't value your company very high. So that's very important. For you to raise funds, it will be very useful if you have IP. So should always plan how I can get IP, how I can create an IP. By tweaking your activities in such a way, IP should become your central point and central theme, so that you will have a better future in that this thing. And one of the most important things is the untimely disclosure. We be scientists basically will start disclosing. We will go to some conference and we present a thing, whatever the developments. The moment you do that, you have lost your IP. Never ever discuss these things in the conferences. Never ever discuss, never ever put it in any of the paper and say that this is not the developments and other thing. So the moment you do that, you have lost your IP. So be careful on that. Don't disclose. Untimely disclosure is very, very bad for you. Okay. Now, quite often we think that I have an idea, I will start my own company, without understanding that I do not have all the required skill sets that to make a company or run a company. So what would be very important is that you have to put together a team. The team should have a complementary knowledge or complementary skill sets that will bring together into this thing. So that will make it much more. Basically, when an investor comes to invest in your company, he would see not the idea, he would see who are the people behind this idea. If the people are a team and the team has got complementary complementary skill sets, he will give more preference to that than just idea. So just idea is not going to take you anywhere unless you have the people, right people, to take it forward, that particular thing. So that becomes very, very important into the this thing. Risks of entrepreneurship, I don't have to tell you, all those people are entrepreneurs here. They all know what are the risks involved in this particular thing. You have an uncertainty of income, very, risk of losing entire investment, your long hours and lower quality of life. As long as your company is coming up in the things, you will have all difficulties in that particular thing. But once you have all those things, once you are established, once you are successful, and you have all the whole world is with you, in a sense that there won't be any The last one is rewards of entrepreneurship. The most important reward is that you will be able to do what you would maximum love it to do. You maximum like to do it. That's the kind of thing that you will do. That gives you the what I call is a startup, or if you are entering into that kind of a field. Otherwise, in any other profession, you will have to do what the boss will ask you to do. So that's the difference in this thing. That is, I think, self-satisfaction or your satisfaction as a scientist will be utmost and very high in a startup. This thing, freedom from limits of organization. You don't have any limits. You are free. Anytime you go, anytime you come. All kinds of freedom. What you want to do, you can do, and everything. But in an organization, if you are serving an organization, you have all those limitations. You cannot do anything what you want to. Freedom from controls and regular supervision. Freedom from routine and boring, unchallenging jobs. These are some of the rewards that an entrepreneur gets. Besides, if he makes a success, he will get the whole world is before him. I think I'll stop here with this particular thing. Thank you very much for your patience.
Welcome you all back to the session, and as I said, there are two exciting lectures to go through the journey of two successful entrepreneurs, one in diagnostic, that is healthcare, and another one in agriculture. So two different aspects, how their journey started and how they were successful. I am sure there were maybe a lot of problems which they could overcome and become the role models. The first speaker will be Dr. Ravi Kumar, who started the company Xcyton, which is really exciting, the only diagnostic company of indigenous diagnostic company. Otherwise, we are all importing the diagnostics from other countries, but he started, shown the path of having our own indigenous diagnostics company. I met Dr. Ravi Kumar, even though I heard about him many times, but I met him in one of the biomedical symposiums organized in Tirupati, where he was also giving a talk. And to introduce him formally, he is a rare species, as somebody was mentioning, that a medical graduate doing PhD is very rare, and also entering into entrepreneurship. It is a unique, I think our students get excited with that. So he has more than 25 years experience in this molecular diagnostics. As I said, he is a physician from JIPMER Pondicherry, and where our Professor Manjula Sreedhara also graduated, and also has done post-graduation in psychiatry at CMC Vellore and PhD from in the Department of Biochemistry from Indian Institute of Science. And his long career comprises research in institutions, large multinational corporations such as Astra Research Center. As a group leader, he founded a science-based biotech company, Xcyton Diagnostics, which developed the first ELISA tests for HIV, hepatitis C, and Japanese encephalitis. As you all know that the blood group, whenever it is, when the blood is donated, you have to do this testing for HIV, hepatitis B, and hepatitis C. Those tests were, kits were imported, but he is the first one to start and introduce into the market. From 2005 onwards, Ravi Kumar and his team of researchers started developing syndrome-based molecular diagnostics panels, and successfully established over 20 infectious disease panels for all important clinical infectious syndromes seen by neurologists, intensivists, oncologists, and transplant surgeons. Infectious diseases is a major problem. You go to the doctor, they will put an antibiotic. We don't know whether it works or not, but he is the one who has come up with a good panel of 20 infectious diseases. With that, I think they can go and give the specific antibiotic. This platform detects 11 to 32 organisms in a single clinical specimen in a single test in 7 hours, In a critical case setting, these panels have saved thousands of lives by their sensitivity and accuracy. Rather than giving nonsense to antibiotics, you could give the very appropriate antibiotic and then save the lives. He had published more than 15 research publications, peer-reviewed journals, and has 2 patents granted and 5 patent applications which are pending. He has supervised and guided 2 students for PhD. He was awarded the Best Bioproduct of Importance to Humanity by Singapore government in 2009, Lockheed Martin Best Innovation Award in 2013, Biospectrum Bioproduct Award in 2004, 2010, and 2013. He served as in the research committees of IMTech, Chandigarh, and DHSTA, Delhi. So, as I was mentioning that he has a really varied background in the academy and the industry, and will share his experiences with all of us. Dr. Kumar.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dr. Yogeswara and Dr. Reddanna, for inviting me. If Dr. Yogeswara invites, I can't refuse. So, for a short stay, I have decided. Thanks for a wonderful introduction, Dr. Reddanna. I heard about BioNEST and I got very curious about it in Tirupati, as Professor Reddanna was explaining, in a biomedical symposium where I heard completely its structure, and I said, wow, this is great. And I need to visit it, and I didn't know that opportunity will come so soon within a month, and it did come. So I'm here. Now, as the title says, I'm not talking about reaching a treasure island, just enjoying that boat ride up to the treasure island. If you are up for that, then you're an entrepreneur. If you're frustrated halfway through that treasure island looks very, very far, then, well, things are not going to work. Now, quite often people ask, what is an entrepreneurship? There is actually a Telugu Sankirtana by Annamacharya about Lord Venkateshwara saying, Enta matramana evaru talachana. Whatever anybody thinks you are that. You could be a Shiva, you could be Shakti, you could be Parabrahma, whatever it is. But whatever people think. So whatever you think is your enterprise. If you think it is a self-realization vehicle, that's what it would become. For my product development skills or my skills to put something to the society, whatever it is, or social responsibility. There are people who think it is their social responsibility to an enterprise, then it is that. Most important, my path to create money, wonderful. All your investors will be very happy within first 5 years. No question. My path to wealth, that's another way of looking at it. I am making a distinction between creating money and wealth. There are 2 different paths. Maybe we can discuss it some other time. My path to fame. I know that there are a lot of people who started enterprises to be just known. I know that. I met them and I spoke to them. Of course, I'm a creative person. Again, it's a part of self-realization. But whatever you started with, there is a personality to your enterprise that comes because of that. This is where my journey starts. The personality of my enterprise is completely, your enterprise is a being. It has a consciousness. It looks like a spiritual talk, but then it has. And that being comes from what you have aimed at. Maybe science and innovation focus like I did, somebody else marketing and sales focused, or manufacturing focused. You have fantastic companies, examples, who can do manufacturing for many other companies in Hyderabad. Valuation focused. I don't know how many of you use Invitrogens is a classical example. They just created 126 patents and about $12 billion valuation. And their sales is 600 million. So, that is another way. And today, there are people who are data and AI focused. That means you first generate biological data using your device, your your diagnostic or your some monitoring mechanism, and then data and AI based. Of course, today I see AI in many slides because that's also a fantastic way to attract funding. Today everybody is going towards AI. In fact, all these, but this is, I have to tell you this is causing a lot of problems. There are people who ask me, why don't you sell your diagnostic very cheap, make losses? Like Flipkart made losses, but at the end of the day, they made big money. Amazon made losses for so many years, but at the end of the day, they are very highly valued. Why can't you do that? The problem is somebody has to fund that loss, and you have to find that vehicle. And that vehicle they found because they are going to use AI and data. What kind of towel would I like to buy is known to probably most of the Flipkarts and Amazon. Forget about anything else. What towel I buy, probably they will know. If you ask the question, they will sell that data to you and make money. And that's what they are being valued at. So whatever it is, we started, basically, I started research, probably it's a very childhood influence. My father was a lawyer, a very famous lawyer in Hyderabad High Court. You will see his picture, and he donated a library. When he passed away, we donated his library to the High Court. He used to say, he worked for freedom, he fought for freedom, and he used to say, in Telugu, I don't know how many of you know Telugu, right? I guess some of you know at least Telugu. He used to say, somebody who is dressing a wound and putting a medicine will reach thousands of people. But one who invents that medicine will reach millions of people. Because I showed interest to go into medicine line very early. And so he used to tell me this constantly. I don't know what he thought. Finally, probably I landed there in that innovation. So, and second thing that happened to me is when I was at Vellore, I used to see many deaths in neurology department. Though I am psychiatry, I did 6 months of neurology, neurosurgery. And all of them are undiagnosed, eminently treatable infections of the brain. We used to have what is called brain cutting. After the patient is dead, I would especially motivate patients to give off the brain alone. So carefully you cut open the skull, take out the brain and the spinal cord, stuff it so that they can do cremation properly, and then put it in formalin, cut it, and later on find what exactly went wrong, because we don't know the diagnosis. And the same thing continued when I started my PhD program. In my PhD program, I worked on human fetal brains and human brains, and I used to have a collaboration with NIMHANS. And there is this professor of pathology, he retired as the director of NIMHANS by name Professor S.K. Shankar. He used to call me from Indian Institute of Science saying, Ravi, there is a postmortem today, clinical postmortem. The patient died of this unknown disease, but then, these are the manifestations. I'll say, okay, if I have no experiment, I would go and join and see that. I didn't know. I was actually getting infected with the idea of working on infection. Though I started my PhD saying that I will work on schizophrenia. That's what I started. I said I will do neurochemistry of schizophrenia. But at the end, after I finished the PhD, after I got my fellowship in cognitive and brain sciences in Boston, I still said, no, I think there is a lot of work to be done in infections because nobody else will work on that. So that's when I was thinking, and I wrote some ICMR projects and so on and so forth. At that time, an opportunity came up in the form of Astra Research Center. There, in the interview, they asked, what would you like to work? I said, I would like to work on a tapeworm disease of the brain and a viral disease of the brain. So they sanctioned these two and said, you can work on it. Luckily, within the first patent I produced, within the first 1.5 years, I became a group leader. It was a very comfortable place. However, at the end of 5 years, I produced a diagnostic for neurocysticercosis. I transferred it to Genzyme Corporation in US, the technology, successful. But in India, nobody would pick up. Everybody will say, you manufacture and put it into a box. Genzyme did their own development of the product. What's the difference between your invention and product? Let me quickly take you to this slide because it's very important. Yeah, this. That's your lab invention and this is your product. And that conversion is unknown in India. I tried from 1988 a lot and couldn't give it to any Indian company. I said, I will develop it myself. Luckily, I had some mentors from a company called Podile in San Diego who helped me how to stabilize diagnostic reagents and so on and so forth. And when K.S. Prasad, who was an ex-IISc student, who had a company called Immunogen in New York. So I learned those skills and put neurosis out into the market I wanted to. Then again, nobody was willing. It was very difficult to put that to anybody. Everybody said, will you come off from Astra to our company and stay here and make this product? Because you know the whole development. And that's when I thought there should be a product development company. By the way, I had a company name when I was finishing my psychiatry. I knew I would start a company, and the company was named Nurex. Unfortunately, in 1988, Nurex Corporation started in California, Palo Alto. So I renamed that company to the Xcyton Diagnostics. Xcyton. It was not Xcyton Diagnostics. It's called Xcyton Syndrome. That was my first company. While I was working at Astra, and I was working on the diagnostic products, I also developed I was interested in making a human papillomavirus vaccine. So I took human dermal cells and grew them in the culture. They started forming layers exactly like the epidermis. I got very curious. Then I contacted a guy called Howard Green. He was at Harvard. He was also trying to grow. We finally grew whole skin in a test tube. So I thought, I gave up the idea of human papillomavirus and I said, let me now make a skin transplant for burns patients. You take small 1 centimeter by 1 centimeter. Myself and one Dr. Sudhir Krishna at NCBS, we mastered it to make exactly 15 square centimeters of skin out of that in 21 days. We said, now we have a product. I went trying to raise money for Xcyton Syndrome Private Limited. I'm sure you can all guess what happened in 1992-93. I went to about 15 financing companies. Everybody would listen. In fact, they will pay for my ticket from Bangalore to Bombay. They will listen to me. In fact, some of them listen to me more than thrice. But nobody is putting his signature on that slightly thick paper called check. And that's when I asked a guy called Jaimin Bhatt. He's now he's in Battery Capital in Bay Area. He was a kid at that time, fresh out of IIM Ahmedabad. That's what's wrong. Nothing is going on for the last 6 months. Especially you have paid for me, but you're not. He said, what you talk is very convincing when you are sitting here. The moment you go out of this place, it looks like science fiction. Because it's way ahead of time at that time. Today, the same thing would get probably funded blindly. So, then I sat back and said, nothing doing. I'll go back to what I am currently doing, diagnostics. And that's how I came to diagnostics and made my first diagnostic as HIV. Because neurocysticercosis, which is transferred to Genzyme, took some time to come back to me in the Indian market. I asked Astra, but Astra gifted it to me. With all a lot of gratitude, I should mention that. They didn't take a rupee, and HIV we did. This HIV was developed with IISc and NIMHANS. And this is purely based on synthetic peptides. Again, that was slightly out of the idea. And Then we launched the neurosister courses, then hepatitis C, then JEV. And that's when we realized, except JEV, which has a standard market from WHO, everything else we were struggling with. Basically, it was all meant for public health, and Government of India is the major procurer. You need to have the DNA to handle government mechanism. If you don't have the DNA, you shouldn't be in that market. So, set of people, including Professor Padmanabhan, who was at that time chairing my company's board, they all sat and told me that a surgeon's knife is being used to do a barber's work currently. Why don't you do something which is unique in technology? And go ahead and develop that. And so we brainstormed, and I landed at what is called critical illnesses. That means illnesses which cause maximum amount of death, especially infections, which are all treated in ICU. They either cause death or a permanent damage to the body, like sepsis, meningitis, encephalitis. You must have heard of all this. So we decided, we did a brainstorming, and I was very excited that day. And reality didn't hit me then. I had 6,000 rupees in the bank and 1.5 lakhs cash burn, and we had an idea of 11 crores worth of project. We had a back of the envelope calculation, and all of us were reasonably excited. With that excitement, I went to Professor Balram, who was at that time the director of IISc, and said, "Hey, I have an idea, and this is fantastic." He said, "Can we go for a cup of coffee?" So I thought, okay, nice. We went, and then he was sitting and said, he said, "Why do you want to commit suicide? How much money do you have in your bank?" That's when I realized only 6,500. How much cash burn do you have? How the hell are you going to make a decision on 11 crores? Where will you raise it? Who will give it to you? Yeah. And he threw the cup there, and he said, "This morning I had a fight with Professor Padmanabhan saying he encouraged you, and you're coming and you're excited about it. You should be practical." I said, "Wow." I still remember, it took 15 days for me to thaw him out. But you won't, it's so funny. We wanted to start with meningitis. That idea didn't go ever, but within 15 days, I got a call from Astra Research Center saying, "I'm the only scientist who went out and started his own enterprise and sustained for some time. So they wanted to give me an entrepreneurship award of 13.5 lakhs. Okay, I just got that money. It's given in the name of B.V. Ravi Kumar. So temptation was to put into my personal bank account, because also 2004, when this happened, 2002, I had difficulty paying for my son's medical seat fees. By the way, I just want you to tell this taste of entrepreneurship. I had difficulty. And so he decided to forego that seat in Karnataka and got, with full scholarship, a seat in CMC Vellore. It worked well for him, but it could have also bombed back on all of us, but it did. Lucky. That's what we call as grace. Some grace was shining upon me. So it was tempting that my daughter will come for law studies. She was interested in law. National law schools are not cheap. So I thought this 13 lakhs will come for that. But then I also said, there is a profound cause. Means will come, there is a profound cause. This is ingrained into me. It's so difficult to get it out of my hypothalamus from my parents. So I said, maybe this is a money which is coming for a profound cause. I put it into the company. And I had a skillful negotiator who was my employee then, later on became my wife. She sat and got chemicals for an entire 1.5 year research for meningitis, plus PCR machine, gel documentation system, and an incubator for 13.5 lakhs. The total original price was 29.7 lakhs. So we started, and as we got the first success of 3 organisms, we just got 10 clinical samples and we got success. Then came a phone call from Professor Padmanabhan saying, "Dr. Yogeswara will call you." I said, "Who is Yogeswara? I've never met him." He said, No, you will meet him, but he will call you now. You listen to it and give your automatic response. whatever comes to you. I said, what is he going to ask? I said, please listen. And then Professor Yogeswara called and said, I know you are interested in molecular diagnostics. There is a challenge project for making eye diagnostics, molecular diagnostics for eye infections, which cause blindness. And there are several institutes that worked for it, like L.V. Prasad in this city, and Shankar Netralaya, and Aravind Eye Hospital, and Iladevi Eye Hospital, Gujarat, and AIMS. So would you like to join them and actually make the product out? At that time, they all made some PCRs. It looked initially, it is easy to put the PCRs together. I went in enthusiastically and I picked it up. I said, maybe this is the second, because I did the first thing right, putting the 13.5 lakhs into the company, probably God sent this opportunity. And we joined that project. And it so happened we had to redo everything, even though for each one of those organisms there was a PCR. We redid that so that they can all be done together in 50 microliters of eye fluid in a single sample, in a single test, in 7 hours time. We promised him about 3.5 hours, but finally we delivered 7 hours incubation time. Less than that was. Well, that success made us very bold. We launched it in 2007. Then we said, we want now for our sepsis, acute encephalitis, and meningitis, and other things. CSR this time was generous, gave us 8 crore. Out of that, 5 crores was loan, 3 crores was for the collaborating institutes, and we started that project. Again, it was under Dr. Yogeswara's leadership. And journey continued. By 2012, we completed all the development. 2012 to 2016, it has seen 11,000 patient samples, and it created 27 publications supporting the data that actually makes a big difference to the society. So that's where this company was. Now, in this story, I must tell you that we needed an infrastructure. In 2006, it so happened Narayanan and Gautam Nadik, his close friend, they introduced me to their funder, Nadaturs. But somebody in Nadaturs by name Sarangarajan said, no, not from the main Nadatur fund. I'll give it from my own fund called Amwar. And he gave, and that's how we built the necessary infrastructure to do this kind of stuff. And that's again, what I'm telling you is I have never done research with, most important, with a PE fund or a VC fund. And I don't know any Indian who did that in his lifetime. People tell you that when you want to do product development, VC funds are available. No VC fund is ever available for product development. Forget it. It is angels and the 3 Fs. Who are the 3 Fs? Family, friends, and fools who exactly believe what you believe. Never forget them. They are the ones who ultimately invest. Friends and family, if you're well-to-do, that's a different story, but they cannot bring too much money. It is these passionate angels. They bring money. Okay? So that's another one lesson I wanted to, I learned very hard way. Why is that so is a big question, but I think, how many of your entrepreneurs can I raise your hands? So all of them are there, I thought. How many of you think of, worry about the funding restrictions in this country for new product development? You don't wonder at all. Dr. Reddanna is doing an eminent job and none of you bothered about it. Oh, that's dangerous. You're in dangerous place. You should come out into the real world. It is because Professor Yogeswara mentioned that this is a trader-oriented country, not an innovator-oriented country. Here is not the whole society won't jump and put money into some new innovation, hoping 10 years later it will raise. They will ask, what will happen by 6th month? What will I get back? And that's where most of these new innovations don't work. And a lot of people tell you 2:1, that is 2 debt, 1 equity. You can actually fund yourself. Never fund yourself for any product development with debt. I developed my HIV test with 32 lakhs from a bank at 22% interest. It's a nationalized bank. Of course, I borrowed it in 1995. Prevailing interest rate was 18%. They said this is risky product, so it should be 22. I accepted. By the time my product hit the regulatory approval, it was 64 lakhs. What I owed them. It catches you. It catches you like mad. Never touch debt when you are in product development. A lot of people think, oh, debt, the company is mine, then 100% of equity is mine. Sorry, 100% of poverty is yours if you take debt. And that's what will wake you up in the middle of the night, not the product challenges, not market challenges. How do I service this loan will wake you up in the night, 2 o'clock, and you're taking antacids, which is not worth it. So don't take debt. That's another golden rule. Anyway, so yeah, I think I will not take you this. Current product line is for, is it for people who have taken antibiotic because they got an infection? They go to after 90% of us get well, God willing. But 10% don't do well with that antibiotic. They go back to the hospital for and 5% of us, like people like me who have diabetes or hypertension or something else, will actually go into ICU. And that's when you don't get a diagnosis because the cultures are negative because you've already taken antibiotic. If you have a brain infection, the brain cytology completely changes because of an antibiotic, and nobody knows whether it is a bacterial infection or a viral infection. You have a whole lot of complexities. So for them, we made this diagnostic, and because there is no diagnosis currently, and it is only in 15% of the cases, 85% of the cases are treated with escalations, like moderate antibiotic, then a gram positive, then a gram negative, then a serious gram negative, then antifungals. Totally the bills are about, how many, if you stay in 10 days in an ICU, what is the bill roughly? Several lakhs. 7 lakhs, 5 to 7 lakhs is a common bill. All big hospitals in Hyderabad qualify for the same plank of charge. So now this is not important. So how do you prevent this antibiotic resistance for life-saving antibiotics coming from the ICU into the general population? It will stop, right? You need a good diagnostic for that, and that's where we made this. And we call it syndrome evaluation system. It was introduced. Somebody here is incubated. Bennett is incubated here. He was there when we did the trial in JIPMA on neonates, where our test reduced mortality by 82% and detected 4 times more than all conventional tests, and reduced antibiotics usage by 50%. So we reached where we wanted to. But then the problems are always, this is a regular product development cycle in any other product except healthcare. Here you imagine a product, then incubate the idea to define what its specificities are, and look at commercializability, then mobilize resource for a demo, then build your prototype, then mobilize market constituents, promote adoption by doing a 4 or 5 places marketing, then go all over and sustain that commercialization. Very simple. But in healthcare, you have got first an FDA approval or a regulatory approval. Then you have to create key opinion leaders among doctors who will say your product works for them. They vouch for it. So they do studies. You need to fund those studies. Some of them, key opinion leaders, means that they're very popular. When they get onto your podium and speak, others are going to listen and others are going to follow. When you find such a person, even to get onto the podium, you might have to spend a lot of money. It is 15 lakhs to get him onto the podium in National Congress, and he, for that 20 minutes talk, can charge anywhere from 2.5 to 5 lakhs. That's the norms in this country. You need to fund all that. You need to pack all that into your business plan. After you create KOLs, then comes post-market survey studies continuously. You need to be funding it. How many of you know Burrell Corporation? It's an international. Burrell once said in Bombay, very beautifully, he said quite often financiers think that they will fund good projects. It's a misnomer. A well-funded project is a good project because it's ready for a lot of fights in the market. See, once you go into the market, you don't know what your competition is going to unleash on you. That day you need tactical money, not strategic money. Do you understand the difference? You cannot plan ahead. That day, can I spend some money and fight my competition? For that, the money should be there. Because your returns are not going to be immediate. 3 months, 4 months, 6 months. It might take some time. For those 6 months, can you sustain your organization? That's what he's talking about. But quite often we hear, no, we are looking for good projects. Sorry, good project is which is well funded. Taking all these considerations into, of course, this I told you. But even this, there's a long period of time. 3 years for diagnostics. For a drug, it is 15 years. Implantable devices somewhere in between. There is a lot of money, sweat, tears. But most important thing, are you willing to bet your career on it? After you tried about 10 years and you say, no, this is not working out, can you get another job? Will somebody accept you? Are you willing to go and work in some other organization after you have been independent for 10 years? These are all the questions which are worth asking. On life science product, I don't have to tell you, all of you know this. But the most important thing that we all need to know is, if your patient is God, because all your value proposition is based on the patient in healthcare industry. All of us do that. Sitting in incubators, you're told again and again to do that. But there's a clinician. Without that, the God can't be reached. Have you thought about a value proposition for him? No. Quite often we don't do, and I see it in C Camp as a mentor, and I keep telling them, don't do this. You need to include them into your value proposition mechanism. Now, in product development, I made some major mistakes. I thought I'll make. One thing is, forget about patient complaints, I'll come to that. Hospital workflow. Simple thing is, a diagnostic that takes 8 hours to decide whether somebody has a heart attack or not is not useful in the emergency room, because whole night the patient has to lie down in the emergency room. Your emergency room, all beds will be occupied. If you have a half an hour diagnostic, the doctor will use that rather than yours, even if it is less accurate. You understand? So you need to have the right product for workflow. First thing all of us do. I'm sure. How many of you have multiple products in making in your companies? Okay, one hand. Very good. Generally, most of us focus on single products. They can't be sold. The selling costs are so heavy for a single product. it won't work. And a doctor, let's say you are going to a neonatologist, there are 5 products, you have made 1 product, other 4 products he has to go to another company, so he won't take yours. A distributor won't take yours. He says, no, I need all 5 products for me to go to a doctor and spend my time and sell something. So the single product companies are increasing in number because BioRack has all these applications that are about single product companies. So what is happening is you have proof of concept money, but after that do you have a pipeline that comes from the same technology? That nobody is asking. You need to ask that question to yourself. Price point and affordability. This is the biggest trap all of us have. I know I am politically incorrect when I say this, but because of this, saying it has to be affordable, so many companies have been floated for diagnostics which are already available but are costly. And they went into the market and the foreign companies pulled down their prices and sat tight for a year. These companies got wiped out. All this technology went waste. Are you seeing that? So it's not affordability, you need to understand. Can you at the end of the day make the whole patient care cheaper? Not just this diagnostic alone. Can you add some value into this? It's very important to look at those things. And unfortunately, thinking that we have a very cheap diagnostic or a very affordable, let's put it proper words, and that will be taken by public health. Sorry, public health believes poor solutions, poor people, you please require poor solutions and don't require costly solutions. And that costly may differ. I'll give you a small example. Gates Foundation once had a big meeting in which they said 3/4 of the world cases are occurring because people who are not diagnosed are coughing and giving TB to the others. So 3/4 of the world cases annually are occurring due to somebody coughing on you and he is not diagnosed. And only 60% can be diagnosed with the current methods. That's also they said. But they suddenly said a diagnostic should cost $5. Would you, when you are spending 12,000 crores in India on TB care, would you like to have 60 million, that is 300 crores for diagnostic, or you are willing to put 500 or 1,000 crores into that? What would you do? Which is more profitable? Which will reduce TB in the country? But somebody pegs these numbers and we all fall into that trap. Don't ever do that. Do your math. If your math and the agency which will buy doesn't match, don't go into that product. But don't trap yourself into the worst businesses in the world. Somebody sat in an armchair in a beautiful California sun and he said $5. Why? Because $500 is the cost. 1% of the cost of the treatment should be diagnosis. At the same time, you are saying all your misery is coming from lack of diagnosis. You should peg your money into diagnosis rather than just treatment. No. So you have those kind of problems. Political correctness of the product is also important before you go to public health. We have a neonatal sepsis diagnosis that reduces, every year 600,000 babies die in this country. We can save 4,80,000. We asked 3 states to do pilot projects. We also found half of the money, but they said government shouldn't put half the money into a diagnostic product. They should put into only preventive products. It's not politically correct for governments to spend that. We need to know that. Had I known that, I would have never even spent those 3 months pitching with those 3 state governments and spending all my time and energy on that. 3 months is very valuable. We could have done so much more in the private market. But these are very important lessons. I told you already, don't ignore clinician's workflow, his habits, and his protocols. That's your product fit into. Then it will go smooth. Otherwise, you are fighting him. And I see a lot of them fighting from CCAM. I don't want that to happen anyway. I don't even want to. I think the final advice is choosing funders. I have told you that I choose mostly angels, family and friends at the beginning. But later on, I did mistakes. I went to somebody who, from England, it's a pharmaceutical company, which said, no, we want to invest in, we are pure manufacturing company, drugs for Pfizer and Glaxo. But I think we now want to get into invention, all this, and diagnostics is a good place, and they came very convincing, but then they don't have the DNA. Within 4 months, they were jittery. Are we in a wrong place? And it took another 8 months to break that marriage. And they walking out and me walking out. In fact, in between, I gave up and I said, I am walking out of this company. Let anything happen. Because they were not willing to go out in any method less than 4 times of what they invested within 4 months to 8 months. Of course, thanks to Kiran Mazumdar Shah, she stepped in. She got somebody to negotiate for me. She put the money, got them out, and then she could have got the company for a song, but she said, next time you get a good valuation from around that valuation, I will take shares in your company. Until then, this money be there. And that's what she did. So, unless you know, funders will tell you, I'm here for long term. What is this long term? He is thinking, if you are profitable by second year, I will be there until 20th year, when I make 20 times more money. Or 40 times, or 60 times, we don't know. You need to ask that. Is that long term? What is his risk appetite? Is he actually, does he wait for product risk? Does he wait for regulatory time? Does he think that your passion is an impediment for your own growth? Sorry to sound very biased. Many American funders look at technocrat promoters as impediment for the growth of that company. First thing they ask you is, when are you stepping up from all your roles? And quite often, you have gathered people with the same passion. And that whole thing will be undone one minute. It's all undone. You need to ask, that culture is there or not, and you need to find out. Does he have a faith in promoter or only promoter's product? What is the business model he believes in? And does he believe in selling concept? Can he sustain that ordeal? Is he aware of real world practices? If you have to give 2.5 lakhs for a lecture to a doctor, does he object? What is this money going on? There are people, and I have faced them, so I can tell you. Now, this is what I wanted to demonstrate long term. Let's say somebody says, I'll give you 10 times. You said 10 times. This company gives about 7 times. This gives 10 times. But in the third year, when he's taking a view of this company versus that company, where will he put the second round of money? You are totally focused on this 10x and you think it is achievable, and probably it is achievable, but does he see that? Can he see this graph like this? Or because he sees the graph here and say, oh my God, we are sinking, I don't want to bring the next tranche. You have already spent the first tranche and you have spent it in a way so that the second tranche comes and makes makes the rest of the projections. Suddenly you are left in the lurch. It's about communication. Funder is not a bad guy. Funder is a guy like you. He is living in his own world. He has seen one company like this and he imagines that company everywhere. And you imagined this and so you are thinking that slightly differently. Can you sit down and say, actually, this is what happened? And that realistic talk is very important. And many of us won't do. And most important thing, how many of you are shy of taking more money than you actually planned for? Suppose investor says, you asked for 3 crores, investor says, take 5 crores. How many of you are willing to? You are willing to take. You are actually multi-product guy, right? Yeah. You are different. Now, how many of you feel nervous? What will happen to my equity position? How much will I get diluted? How many of you are afraid? I was always afraid, let me tell you. Always took exactly the money that I required. And it was always short of what I needed. Don't do that. So, I think I'll stop here. I have spent a lot of time. If probably one question, not beyond that, because after that, Narayanan wants to take over and then I will run away.
Despite pressing need, his presence is required at home because his son is leaving to US in the evening. Despite that, he could join us. If there are any pressing questions.
Even more important, my grandson is leaving this year.
Oh, grandson.
2.5 years old.
Yeah, okay. So you enjoyed all this time with grandson.
Any questions? Not exactly question. You have some context. Yeah. It taught me what is a goal-oriented project. How do you run? How do you how to put blinkers and go to your product? You might see a lot of exciting things on the way. We didn't do. That is taught in phenomenal place for that.
Okay. So I'd like to give a memento, and I think it is better that you open it. Open it and then show what it is.
So that there are no surprises in the security check.
Yeah. Yeah. There is also.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. So we will switch gear from healthcare to agriculture. The next speaker is Dr. Narayanan. Narayanan is not new to the School of Life Sciences because he was the school board member and also he is the advisory committee member of BioNEST Incubation Center. Dr. Narayanan graduated from Tamil Nadu Agricultural University, which is very well-known agricultural university in the country. And afterwards, he went on a Rockefeller Foundation fellowship to Stanford University to do his postdoctoral research for a while, and then came back and joined SPIC Science Foundation in Chennai, and later moved on to lead the crop transformation and functional genomics program at Monsanto Research Center. You all may be knowing that Monsanto came to India and then started a research center in the Indian Institute of Science campus, and he was leading the group there in that. And in 2001, Monsanto ran into problems. I think that's when he moved out and then started a new company of himself, Metahelix Life Sciences, and started operation along with his friends. And so he established this company and brought into one of the successful agri-biotech companies. And with that, the Tata, the Metahelix was sold to the Tata Group and is today one of the leading plant biotech companies in the country. And subsequently, he started another company, Kottaram Agro Fruits, which is into ready to eat and ready to cook foods using some of the traditional grains of. So the minor millets, I think you might have heard everywhere now people are talking about minor millets. And using those minor millets, he started several of the ready-to-eat foods which are sold under the brand name Soulful. And he will tell you more about it. He is today involved in mentoring several startups and in the area of food and agri-biotechnology. Whenever we call Dr. Narayanan, he is always willing to come and share and talk to people and then guide them, mentor them. And in that respect, I think his services are available to youngsters in innovation and entrepreneurship. He is also actively involved with an organization, NGO, Swami Vivekananda Youth Movement, helping them put together their rural development programs. So you can see he's not only an entrepreneur, but also he would like to give his services to the society. That I invite Dr. Narayanan.
Thank you, Professor Reddanna, I think, for the very generous introduction. And it's wonderful to be back here again. It's always a pleasure to be here. So you had, I think, this morning, very structured presentation of how a startup should be in a knowledge economy by Professor Yogeswara, and Ravi Kumar's perspective on how he started his companies, mainly catering to the health sector. And now I will try to share some of my experiences and thoughts on what you could do in the food and agricultural sector. I must caveat my talk by saying that these are not textbook prescriptions, these are individual experiences. You can take them for whatever it is worth, they are not gospel. So you need to really be convinced about what you're doing. It is essentially to provoke your thinking on how to go about things. And I realize that many of you have already begun or embarked on the entrepreneurial journey. I thought I will structure my presentation by telling you about the opportunities for entrepreneurship in the food and agriculture sector, but I will, as I go along, weave in my own experiences, my own journey into the whole narrative. And towards the end, I will be focusing more on what has been the key experiences that we have had in building Metahelix, which has gone through the kind of, I would say, a whole cycle of entrepreneurship, from a thought, getting the people together, starting an enterprise, taking it to a stage, divesting it, getting somebody to buy it, and then various going through the journey, enjoying the journey, getting to a destination, and then starting the journey again. So kind of going through the entire process. And that's kind of completes the cycle. People could fall off at any point in between, but ideally, if you go through the entire journey, you get kind of a wholesome experience. Now, if you want to start an enterprise and you think about an idea, I think what all of us try to look at is to create a value proposition. You don't immediately look at whether, I should be making, what should be my profit margin and stuff like that. If you create a value which is valuable to any component of the society, a share of that value essentially runs your business. And that's the revenue you get, and part of that is your profit. So for creating a value, what is the first thing that you should look at? For anything to start, whether you are trading or whether you are in the innovation business, I think the first thing is to look at a demand. And let me tell you, if you look at the, I should point it there. The food and agricultural sector, I think you don't have to worry too much about generating a demand, because the demand is always going to be there. I think into the foreseeable future, people need to have food, they need to have raw materials for their industry, for their products, and most of it comes from the land through primary agriculture. So just to give you a perspective of how the demand is growing globally, if you look at, this is the population graph, a cartoon. Till 1950, from the time of the birth of Christ, 0 year, you can see that in 1950 years, the population of the world grew to 2.5 billion. So these are in billions. But it took only the next 50 years to add the next 2.5 billion. And now you can see how it is accelerating. And it's believed that by 2050, I think the population, or 2000, there are different estimates. By 2050, it should be about 9 billion. People think that it will start plateauing there. But there are others who believe that I think our world and technology could support a higher population. It could plateau somewhere at about 12 billion. Today it's about 7.5 billion. It's about 12 billion by 2000. That is by the turn of this century, it should be about 12 billion. Whatever it is, whether it is 9 billion or 12 billion, I think you can see that the need is increasing. And what you also need to do, if you want to run a business, if it is just a demand, you can get everybody into the business. But it's only those special people whom we sometimes call as the entrepreneur, or as Dr. Ravi Kumar described as one of the fools, or people who support such people with crazy ideas. They get into the fray because these demand has to be met in the face of challenges. And there are many challenges. If you take agriculture, one of the limiting resources, resources for production, whether it is land, whether it is water, these are all getting less and less. So you have to meet the demand in the face of increasing challenges or decreasing, like they say, more crop per drop, which means you have to be much more efficient in using the resources. So that's a challenge. And that's also, I look at it as an opportunity. If you are an entrepreneur, you look at it as an opportunity because there is now opportunity for technology. You can differentiate your approach from somebody else. You can't extend the land area, so you need to produce more from less. So these are opportunities. And so that actually opens up the way for entrepreneurship. So whatever you have studied, wonderful, you can be professors, many of us will be. You can be professors and teachers for some time, but you can also now, instead of job seekers, you can create jobs by creating things of value, which is essentially entrepreneurship, my definition. Now, just to give you some example, I told you about the challenges about reducing land available for agriculture, but now there is a new threat, we all talk about it, global warming, climate change, and stuff like that. I'm sure all of you must be referring to this journal called Nature, right? So there is November 17th issue of Nature, which is an anniversary issue. How many of you saw this paper by Bailey, Serres et al.? It was on what are the challenges that food production in the world will face and how do we address those challenges. And if you have not really looked at it, I would recommend all of you to take a look at it. If you are interested in an entrepreneurship journey, technology intensive entrepreneurship journey in the agricultural area. Now they have cited some of the challenges which the climate change, or as a result of climate change or global warming. One of them is aridity, that means less and less water that is available. Hyderabad and some of these regions are located in what is called the semi-arid tropics. That means rainfall is less and it is not evenly distributed throughout the year. So you need to have crops which are more efficiently using water for their productivity. You have an international research station here, ICRISAT, which is very close to you. The other stress would be heat stress. See, the global temperatures are expected to go up by 1 to 2 degrees by the turn of this century. That is, in the next 70 to 80 years, it will increase. There are different estimates. Some people exaggerate, but the most reliable one is between 1 to 2 degrees increase in the average temperature. So you will have more warmer summers, and the average temperature ranges. Depending on the latitudes that you are in, it may impact you positively or it can impact you negatively. But generally, the major food production areas of the world today can have several negative impacts because of the global temperature rise. If you look at the Indian situation itself, wheat is cultivated from our northern latitudes, almost from about Jammu region. So if you come through the Indo-Gangetic plain, it comes all the way down to Bihar. And the average temperature differences there, we have got data for about 50 to 100 years. From the time of independence, we have been monitoring that. For every degree drop or increase in night temperature, the wheat yields is about 10% less. So the most productive wheat yields are in northern Punjab and the Himachal areas, whereas as you come down, the wheat yields are reducing. Of course, some of it is being mitigated by getting more and more heat-tolerant wheat varieties. There are mission mode projects supported by DBT, ICR and all on getting heat-tolerant wheat varieties. So that is about heat stress. Nutrient stress. The whole composition, soil, nutrient, the microorganisms, everything can change. It can lead to stresses in the soil. Now, in addition to that, what it also says today, nutrients, external application of nutrient has become very important in agriculture. In fact, there are reports which says that if urea or the nitrogenous fertilizers have not been invented or not been used in agriculture, the world population would have been only half of it. This is half of it. Half of us wouldn't be here. This is a National Geographic report. I can share it with you. In fact, I will later on in a slide I will show you about the nitrogen balance, which is from the same article. So, but urea production is highly energy intensive. The Haber-Bosch process is highly energy intensive. Is there some way by which you can make the plants manufacture their own nutrients? Let us look at that. Flooding events. I think India is one country which can seriously get impacted by rising water levels. The more frequent floods. We have seen it. Places which never used to experience flood like Kerala and other places, we are getting flooding events. And that is almost on a regular basis. Last 3 years there has been continuously, there has been floods and washouts and then followed by severe drought. So that's a kind of a paradox. You would expect that once you have a flood, the water table, everything will be charged, but then they are just running out into the sea. So those could be also challenging. So these actually present, you can look at it both ways. There can be challenges, you can get repressed because of that, or you can look at it as an opportunity where you can intervene through technology and various other means and then create value. And that's essentially the basis for entrepreneurship. Now, Indian situation itself, the area under cultivation, I think between different seasons, we have multiple seasons. If you take the total area, cropped area in the country, it is about 185 million hectares average, and that is not increasing. In fact, it is to some extent, this is an old data. But the trend is continuing in many ways because we are using more area for roads, more for buildings. That area is actually coming down. In spite of India having one of the largest proportion of its land area under cultivation, 54% of the total land mass of India is under cultivation. Usually for many other countries, it is only between even major agrarian countries like USA, like China and other places, it's only between 20 to 30% which is under the plow. Whereas India, it is about 54% is under the plow. So we don't have any, that's why our forest cover is only 17%. Even though we say 17%, most of it is some very marginal land, degraded lands, we call it under forest. Water tables, you see particularly in the Punjab region, where you have red, what it means is the water that is sucked out of the soil through borewell and other irrigation system is much more than what is actually seeping down into the soil. So you are facing crisis. So what is actually happening in some of those areas, salinity and other things are coming up. And of course, some areas the water is sufficient, but you can see these tinges of red. which is suggested. These are again old data. Now it could be really worse than what it is depicted in this picture. Coming back to the Nature paper, now I don't want to give a commentary on that paper, but I just put it to remind me about, to talk to you about some of these technologies which could afford huge entrepreneurial science-based activities, and which I thought will be of relevance, having understood some of the programs that's going on in the life sciences division here, could be relevant for a discussion, or at least to provoke you into thinking on some of those lines. I think we all know about disease tolerance. I will give you some examples. We talk about new ways of tackling diseases, particularly fungal and bacterial diseases, and I'll show you one example as we go forward. I'm not exactly trying to repeat the proposal that's made in this paper, but ideas which are maybe relevant here. Now we talk about flooding survival. I don't know if you know, there are parts of India which grows rice which are used to flooding. Particularly in the Assam and the northeastern areas, there are flood tolerant rices. In fact, a gene from those has been isolated. Have you heard about the sub-1 gene, submergence tolerance gene? What it essentially does is, of course, it is ethylene sensitive activator of some genes, which actually leads to the degradation or the usage of the photosynthesis. You must have heard about it. Some of you have heard about it? Okay. So this makes it insensitive. This mutant or this sub-1 allele is essentially insensitive. So what it does is, when there is flooding, and this is in rice, the rice plant does not waste its energy. It actually conserves its energy, keeps its photosynthesis ready, so that when the flood recedes, it is able to regenerate. So when you say tolerance to an abiotic stress, it can be through different means. It can be tolerant to flooding per se, or the other means of flooding tolerance would be ability to regenerate so it will remain quiescent or dormant, and then it will suddenly start sprouting. I think now it's called the Indian Rice Research Center. It used to be called the Directorate of Rice Research. They have done a lot of work on that and then transferred this sub-1 into Swarna and some of the popular varieties. So you have Swarna sub-1 and things which are cultivated today. So this is an opportunity. Similar technologies can be employed. Huge opportunity. There's a clear margin. So a company which sells Swarna will get X amount, but if you can add the sub-1 gene into it and make it flood tolerant, in certain geographies you actually get a premium. And that essentially goes into your bottom line of your company. That's the value that you get. There's a monetary value that you actually give. Of course, I will talk about optimized photosynthesis. Maybe another approach which we have in the next slide. See, we know that plants, the photosynthetic mechanism, there are at least 2 or 3 types. There is the C3 types of carbon fixation, C4 types of carbon fixation, carboxylation acid metabolism. But talking about C3 and C4, I'm sure you know the essential difference between them. The first, in the C3 mechanism, the carbon dioxide is fixed using a 3-carbon compound, phosphoglyceric acid, PGA, and it is mediated through an enzyme called Rubisco, RUBP carboxylase. You know that, right? That is simple. Now, just as an aside, the largest quantity of protein that is there in the world is actually the Rubisco protein. Because it has got 2 subunits in the plants, large and the small subunit, but together, it is actually part of every green plant should have a Rubisco. So Rubisco, unfortunately, this enzyme, while it can actually fix carbon dioxide, under certain conditions, when the temperature is high or when the carbon dioxide is in limiting concentration, this actually acts as an oxidase. So instead of fixing carbon, it actually respires, or what is called photorespiration. It actually emits. Whereas the C4 plants, they also fix carbon using the Rubisco pathway, PGA. But what happens is these are protected under the bundle sheath structure, or anatomically they are different. So the external variations of carbon dioxide exchange ratio or the temperatures don't affect the carbon fixation. The first fixation happens through PEP carboxylase. You've heard about it, right? So PEP carboxylase doesn't have the oxidative function, or it doesn't participate in the photorespiration, it always fixes, and the malate is actually injected into the cells, which actually enters the Calvin cycle. So now there is a lot of, today with the capability to introduce multiple genes simultaneously and then express them in a coordinated manner in plant tissues, there are a number of efforts now to manipulate the pathway. So that can you convert now a C3 plant into a C4 plant? Some of the efforts which have had partial success is actually those in which people have tried to use these components systems or the enzymes in the pathway from intermediaries. So there are in nature, there are intermediate types of plants which are C3 under certain conditions and C4 under certain conditions. And these seem to be facultative in terms of C4. So such plants, the intermediate, will they work a huge amount of work, multi-institutional, huge funding work is going on in crops like rice. If you can get something like that, you are clearly creating an yield advantage, which will only grow with growing time, with uncertainties in terms of field temperatures and the heat stress and stuff like that. And that will actually create a lot of value. And these technologies, there can be a lot of spin-offs, which can also lead to several side projects. Just to give you an idea. I talked about the fertilizer use, right? Now, see, in the agricultural ecosystem or the food production ecosystem, what we to see, to produce the biomass, the plant has to take in all the nutrients from the soil, right? Of course, carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, water from whatever irrigation you do, but nitrogen, phosphorus, all these things have to come from the soil. In a forest or a natural ecosystem, when the plant dies, it all falls back into the soil, it's decomposed there itself, and there is a cycle going on locally of the nutrient cycle. But in agricultural ecosystems, what happens is part of the biomass, you are taking it away from that location. So what happens is, the soil is naturally getting depleted, or there is a mining of the nutrients that's happening. That's why you have to replenish the soil. If you want to get the similar kinds of yields or productivity, you have to replenish the soil. Of course, you can use farmyard manure and stuff like that, but the amount of nitrogen content and other things that it has is very less compared to, let's say, urea contains 46% usable nitrogen. So earlier, it all derived from people used to, urea was, why is it called urea? Do you know that? Urea salt was first isolated from human urine in the later part of 18th century, 1763 or something like that. So urea is you know that, if you have a kidney problem, it's diagnosed by looking at your blood urea level. So your nitrogen protein metabolism leads to urea. So don't be surprised when somebody says my Panchagavya or Gomutra gives you, because he is actually adding urea to it. Plus in addition some other salts as well. But urea contains 46% usable nitrogen. Compared to if you take farmyard manure, it will be 0.3 to 0.5%. So you can imagine where you use 2 bags of urea, you probably have to use maybe 2 tons of farmyard manure. The ideal way to go about is to use integrated farming, because the farmyard manure also supplies some microorganisms and certain soil carbon, which the urea doesn't give. So these things you have to integrate it. Now, talking about urea, it was, I think, in the late 19th century, 1880 or something, when Haber-Bosch, because plants can take in only urea that is, or the nitrogen that is fixed. Atmospheric nitrogen, even though 74% is nitrogen, it cannot take in. So the fixation of nitrogen was an issue. So ammonia was produced using Haber-Bosch process, which can be converted, condensed into urea. And that was in the mid 1800s. And that's a highly energy intensive process, because you need high amounts of pressure, high amounts of temperature for the nitrogen and hydrogen to condense to form ammonia, and then that can be converted into fertilizers. Now if you can make the plant or the system around the plant itself fix nitrogen, I am just giving you one example, and produce that, there is a lot of effort in that area. So we keep talking about okay, so how do we now co-opt the soil dwelling microorganisms? They can be externally dwelling or they could be endosymbionts, like in the case of rhizobium, which is a well-known case in the case of legumes. But rhizobium, then you have to create structures like the nodules, where rhizobium, the fixation actually happens using leg hemoglobin, and then it actually happens in an anaerobic environment. But that anatomical changes creating may be very difficult. But there are free living organisms. And the plants also tend to have a relationship with them, and that relationship is often mediated by certain chemicals which the plants exude. So, a plant which normally doesn't exude some of these organic acids and humic acids can be made to exude through actually manipulating certain pathways, so that you can actually promote the colonization by some of these microorganisms. Now, there are tomes and tomes written about some of these things, and I would encourage you to look at. See, these could be good opportunities for creating value for agriculture. If you can reduce nitrogen usages, one of the problems also with nitrogen usage is use and abuse. There is a very thin line between it. If you use excess nitrogen, what happens? It goes into the water bodies, it causes eutrophication, there is a lot of algae and other growth, your fish die. So, excess use also is bad. So, some of those can be prevented. The energy can be saved, because these are all, they are all mediated through enzymes and stuff. They work under room temperature or the natural conditions. So, these can be leveraged. Now, talking about, since I mentioned rhizobium, you all know that the rhizobium, there is an enzyme called there is a protein called leg hemoglobin. Have you heard about it? Okay. Why I bring it up? Because recently I was in a meeting where there was a lot of interest about plant-derived meat. There's actually a company called Impossible Foods. You know, they have teamed up with Burger King. They make burger with the plant meat. So they say it is, I didn't get a chance to taste it, but they say, I have not tasted beef also. But everybody says that it's tasting exactly like beef when you fry it, the same sizzling. So one of the tricks that they do is soybean protein is actually spiked with leg hemoglobin, which is produced using yeast. And the heme is the trick. That is what gives the mouth feel and other things for the meat. And even the sizzle when the meat is fried. Anyway, this is an aside, but that's also a great opportunity. And I thought then immediately a country like India, where there is a lot of, particularly beef eating is restricted to a few places only, and where there is largely a vegetarian population, some of these things could have a huge opportunity. That's what at least for certain sections of the people who can afford to pay for that. The battery is coming down. Anyway, with changes in temperature, the disease and pest profile will also change. So I couldn't help put some of our own work up on the table. You know, the conventional way of breeding for resistance to, say, blast. This is rice seedlings. And one of the major diseases of rice is blast. Have you heard about it? Magnaporta griseae. It's a Magnaporta complex. And it's a devastating disease in some areas, particularly in Raipur, Chhattisgarh, Dhangata, and somewhere in Coorg and other places. And the manifestation can be manifold. You know, you can have leaf blast, and the most dangerous one is what is called the neck blast. You know, the plant will look very normal, but as the heading is completed and the seeds are set, suddenly between the neck region of the panicle, you will get the infection and the neck will just break. And you will end up with only chaff instead of filled seeds. And that you would have spent all the money for growing the plant. If you see a leaf blast, you can at least spray it immediately. But neck blast, there are many markers for that. But we tried a different approach. You know, it is an RNAi based approach, RNA interference. You actually knock out some of the genes of the fungus, the vital genes of the fungus, and then get the resistance. Now you can see that in the trials. These are nursery trials. We did one field trial, but beyond that, because the regulatory issues, we couldn't go beyond that. So like Ravi Kumar said, when you actually do these kind of experiment, don't do it with borrowed money. You do it with money given by people who can really understand how long it would take, because there are uncertainties, not just technology uncertainties, there are regulatory uncertainties also. So you can see that Co39, which is a control, completely knocked out, and some of the lines which we have developed are still standing and doing perfectly fine in these experiments. So these are all technologies, and today, this is RNAi, but we have moved on. Technology has moved on to DNA editing, gene editing as they call it. Huge opportunity. In humans, there are many more ethical and other issues, but when you talk about crop production and this one, many crops, many systems are amenable to gene editing. Today you can buy kits. In India itself, there are at least 2-3 companies which are actually demonstrated their capabilities for doing gene editing. One is right here in Hyderabad. There's a company called AgriGenome which have done and convincing evidence to show that they can do it in rice and tomato. So it has become fashionable also. You take any issue of Nature, biotechnology, some of these leading journals, you will find 1 or 2 papers on gene editing. Now it is not just confined to academics. Now this has come into the commercial domain also. There is already an approved variety of potato where the peroxidase gene is knocked out so that it doesn't brown. So normally when you cut the potato and keep it before frying, you keep it for sometimes it turns brown, like the apple, Arctic apple which turns brown. So, and there is another one which doesn't produce acrylamide on frying. There are a few of them, examples which have already come out. But what is more important is I wanted to show you, like Ravi Kumar said, now you talk about AI, you will get funding. So if you incorporate some of these technologies, I think there are a lot of people willing to fund you, to show your capability. And these are some of the major companies involved in gene editing. The Inari, for example, a Japanese-based company, recently have raised more than $500 million for technology demonstration and applying it into the commercial areas. So if some of you can develop that as a platform, even start off by offering services, but then you can go into products, I think that will be a wonderful thing. In this context, I want to tell another thing. See, particularly because of the software industry, there's been a tendency to think the easy way to go is to get into services, because the investor will also start seeing revenues in 1 year or something. But the real value of technology is actually in the product. If you provide services, you are always subsidiary to somebody who is actually developing the product. So you can only expect to grow so much. Whereas the Ciscos and other things are really big. Of course, in our Indian context, Infosys and other people are big, but they can never expect to grow like IBM or the Cisco. But now you would have realized that once they have reached the wage arbitrage and other things are now almost gone, they are also looking at developing products, whether it is for financial services, airline booking and stuff like that. And that's the movement, that's the direction that we are taking. And in life sciences, let me tell you, there is a small opportunity for providing services in the areas of genomics, in the area of transformation, stuff like that. In fact, some of the public institutions in this country have taken on that job. For example, ICRISAT and other people do marker services and all. There is a value, but then it depends on how ambitious you are. Do you want to run a mom and pop shop, or do you want to really create an enterprise which employs a lot of people and create jobs and create value? When you create value, as I told you before, you should remember that you don't have to feel any guilt at all or guilty. Because you are creating value for somebody or some components in the society, and what is it that you are taking as part of your business is only a small share of that value. So you cannot have that value unless you are in the business of stealing or plundering or something like that. You cannot make a business without actually creating a value for the society at large. So let's take that, because I think Indian psyche, our culture, we are taught that profitability sometimes is used as a bad word, but profitability is not a bad word, provided you are doing it in a legal, ethical, and in a societally positive way. Now, moving from so long we were talking about how technologies that are involved in changing the nature of the plant or the genetic makeup of the plant can have entrepreneurial opportunities. Now, food production is about nature, which is the genetic makeup, and nurture, the environment or the ambience that you provide around it. Huge opportunities which are emerging and which are relatively easy entry points for entrepreneurship. And you know that urbanization in the country is increasing. more and more, already about 35-40%. No, during Gandhiji's time, he said India lives in its villages. At that time, the urbanization was not much. Today, already 35% of the people are in urban areas. So, peri-urban farming needs, land is at a premium. Every input is at a premium. There is a nutrient protection, ambience, convenience, all fresh food. It doesn't, your cabbage or something doesn't have to come from Ooty or Pune or some place, if you can grow it locally. So, there is a huge opportunity for protected cultivation. In fact, one of the things I didn't mention was I am also invested in one of the companies which actually is into peri-urban farming. So, we talk about aeroponics, hydroponics and vertical farming. In some of these areas, you need highly precise controls, and that is where we talk about integration of different technologies. Tomorrow's agriculture is going to be an integration of multiple domains. It is no longer going to be about just plant sciences or botany, agronomy, pathology. You are going to have internet, you are going to have computational biology. This is Internet of Things, how its application is growing in agriculture. And people who want to meld these two domains will find it very interesting to start enterprises in these areas. For example, when we talk about protected cultivation, you are talking about precision farming. And there are already companies which are into, if you look at the big grand applications also, many of them are involved with developing sensors or remote monitoring. There is one guy who is selling very simple device. On your cell phone there is an app, and sitting in Hyderabad I can operate my pump in my farm. So whether there is power there I will know, and at that time, otherwise I had to go to the farm and then switch it on. This is called Kisan Raja, one of the first guys, and that's being sold. That's a very simple concept, but this is all of convenience. And today with the increasing broadband capacity and the increasing use of cell phones and other things, these kind of applications are finding more and more traction in our country. So precision agriculture is you don't have to regularly, every morning you keep watering, whether it is a dry day or a rainy day or anything, you can actually get a sense of the water level or the water tension in the soil or the growth medium, and accordingly your pump will operate. And these are all one-time investments, and today with things getting cheaper and cheaper, I think these are becoming more and more affordable. And let us be very, very clear. During my time when I studied agriculture, the Indian farmer was described as a poor, innocent, illiterate laggard. You know what's a laggard? A laggard is somebody who doesn't take to technology very easily. But I tell you, the Indian farmer, you show him the value, he is the most progressive one. BT cotton is a typical example. Globally, when GM crop area was increasing at less than 10% year on year, Indian growth rate, we have 12 million hectares of cotton, the largest in the world. Indian growth rate, Indian farmers adopted it. Every year they were doubling. And in 6 years, by 2006, 2007, almost 95% of the total cotton area was BT cotton, because they see the benefit. You can't do a dog and pony show and sell things to the Indian farmer. So if you are into this entrepreneurial journey in the area of food and agriculture, you have to demonstrate tangible benefit. You can't put Shah Rukh Khan or Katrina Kaif on the advertisement and like they do for a toothpaste, this one. You have to go to his field and show that it is doing benefit, and they find that the heavens are not falling, they are better off, they adopt it very fast. Okay, so the concepts have to change. Of course, livestock management, I am sure some of you may be aware. Today, large, particularly this being implemented in large dairies, you can have motion sensors, like some of them which you have in your watches, which when you walk it will tell you how many steps you have taken. This is a small example where the cows, their eating behavior, their movement, everything changes when they come to heat. And when you have a large herd of cows, how do you decide which ones to be artificially inseminated and all? This is only one of the device. It also talks to you about how much it is eating, how much it is consuming. These are all getting increasingly used, and there's a huge scope for development. Water management I mentioned. Soil management, you can have sensors, hyperspectral cameras either mounted on drones or or in small aeroplanes and stuff, which can actually determine how much area is there, how much of that area is green, because you get the chlorophyll reflectance, and you can get hypospectral profiles which actually indicate whether there's a deficiency of some nutrient or other things. These are all hot areas of research and entrepreneurship, not just in our country but all over the world. And some of the countries like Israel and other people are leaders, and I believe that a country like India, with the kind of brain trust that we have, we can actually very, very effectively compete and become global leaders in some of these areas. Well, automation, many people say that, India, there is a shortage of labor, which some of you may not believe. How many of you have families which are into farming? Okay. So during the time of harvest, do you get enough labor? Or they have to come from Orissa or Assam or someplace? Even then, that's not sufficient, right? And the cost of labor also is high. Of course, we cannot have machines like these ones. These are all combines in the US. But we need to have smaller machines which are scale neutral. What it means is, if you have these big machines, unless you have a minimum area of land, it doesn't work out. The capital that you sink into it becomes too high. Whereas smaller machines which can operate in a smaller area. A typical example, I don't know if you have traveled to Salem, Namakkal area of Tamil Nadu, and see, they have actually made a combined harvester. Of course, scale is much smaller, by actually mounting a tractor on top of the system. So some of these mechanisms is a reverse engineering, and these are very effective. I have seen them in Andhra Pradesh also, many places. They will come with a scooter or a bike mounted on top, and they will go in search of fields which need harvesting, and then they will harvest it for a per acre some cost. But see, there is other models also. See, also to reduce the drudgery, you can have weeders, because now people, you don't want them to sit in the sun and then take out the weeds, so you automatic weeders. But what is important is, when you do something for India, make them affordable. They should be scale neutral, I explained earlier. Or you think about an Uber or a Ola model. Everybody need not buy these things, Even that, by actually having an app, suppose you are having the resources to buy it, or you can get the government support to buy a set of equipment which is needed in your area. Let's say a weeder or a combined harvester. Through the app, I will be able to know where all the, like the Uber taxis, where it is available, it is free, it will take half a day to reach there. I can book one and get it done. So even that is an innovation. So it is not just innovating in terms of finding the machinery or designing the right thing, but also the deployment. I think Yogeswara, during his talk, he brought out some of those aspects, but in different words. So the appropriate deployment or the appropriate thinking is important. Otherwise, you can have a great product, but it will be a failure in the market, because you don't know how to actually reach it to the customer who can use it. How much more time do I have? Okay. So let me, now value addition, income to the farmer is very important, huge opportunities for value addition. These are some of the products of the new company that I have. You can actually have sugarcane. In fact, I advise one company which is trying to make pharmaceutically useful proteins in sugarcane. We have a big problem of agricultural waste. If you can find some ways of using this biomass, degradable plastics. So these are some of the opportunities, because I want to use the next 5 to 7 minutes in talking about my journey. And then this is metahelix. You will find that this is a wavy, Ravi Kumar had a arrow like this, but this is a little wavy because the journey can always be ups and downs. It is not always up. Let's be very clear about it. So we started in 2001. I came out of the Monsanto Research Center in IASC, teamed up with a couple of people, and that was our startup time. We got the angel funding from one of the founders of Infosys, who is Nadattur Raghavan. Like Ravi Kumar said, later we introduced them to him also. So that was a good thing, because it was not just money, it was a small amount of money, but it was money which belonged to somebody. See, many of these VC investors, the money that they give you is actually money that they have borrowed from somebody else. So there is an investor expectation behind them. So there could be pressures which you should be very clear. When you ask for money, you should know what is your staying period. Do you want an exit in 4 years, 5 years, or 10 years? And that should be aligned with your scheme of things. Otherwise, you can get into serious problems. Of course, the next phase in our teams, we were strengthening our marketing channels. So the initial stages, see, it's also important to get some revenues. So we did some contract research also at that time, even though we knew our aim was to get into products. The contract revenues, and you should use it very intelligently. One is, of course, the money you get is very useful, and you can get good margins if it's a very unique product, service that you are offering. The second thing is, if you are doing services for some of these big players, you can use it as a learning ground. You will know how they operate, how do they operate big projects. You will get into intimate contact with people so that you get to learn a lot of things. So that can be a useful addition. The third and the most important, see, you can keep tom-tomming. You know, I can do plant transformation, I can make so many transgenic rice. But if somebody else is putting money in your company or in your capabilities, it is an external validation of your capabilities. And that makes it easier to raise funding. The battery is almost run. Can you put on? Yeah. Go ahead. Complete this slide before you go. So I think just one point I wanted to make, because we had a discussion about taking debt and equity, right? So see, we were into revenues because of the services that we were offering, and we were profitable in the initial years. But we know that the real value is actually in technology. So if you want to become, let's say, a 50 crore company, and then steadily you keep running it, you will have 20, 30 employees, that's good. But your ambition is to become a 1,000 crore company, then you cannot stay with services, because you will always be subsidiary to somebody who is. So you will start stepping on, you will be helping competition after a point. So can you go back? So this is the phase where it becomes very, because your initial thinking may be that this is the most difficult phase. But in my experience, the most difficult phase is the scaling up phase. So you have to really manage cash flows. And that, you know that you have a good product. You know that it will sell because you have done all the trials. But to reach it to the customer, to do the promotion, do the scaling up, you have to increase your head count. You need to have field people. Your control on the people reduces, because now initially you had 20, 25 people, lab people, everybody you know. But now you have somebody sitting in Dhangatta, somebody in Kolhapur, somebody in Maharashtra, and all these places, and you have to manage. And they are all working in the field. They will say they are starting from 9 o'clock to 5 o'clock, they have work, but you don't know whether they are sitting in a tea shop or actually meeting your customers. So that becomes a difficult phase, and you need to have systems to actually monitor that. So that scale up phase. And if you have products, don't take, never, in many of these things, personal guarantees is a no. Never give personal guarantees. Don't put your personal assets into the, like if you take a bank loan, obviously you are personally becoming liable, not just the company. Whereas you need to take debt on your products. For example, if you are producing, you can hypothecate your products or your assets and then take debt if it's a limited company. We can discuss it offline as if some of you are interested in some of these details. Of course, then after 5-10 years, you can either get into a strategic partner, and that's what we did. We sold it off to. Quick word about some of the lessons. Be flexible. Ends are more important than the means. Means you have to be flexible. If you realize that you are making a mistake, you need to stop. Realize the mistake early enough so that the losses are less, and then find a new path or find the backup plan. And you don't fail. Making a mistake is no problem. Don't be sensitive about it. We have a stigma. We all make mistakes. The most successful people actually make more mistakes. Mistakes are actually learning experiences. It's a stepping stone to success. Okay? So as long as you don't give up, mistakes are okay. Right? And don't fear. Just because I may make a mistake, if you fear to tread, then you are gone. It is like saying that I don't write an examination because I may lose marks in something, that means you have failed even before you started. Be prepared to failures. Recovering from failure is the key to success. Hedge your bets, have alternate plans. Be careful in choosing a financial partner. We had some discussions around it. Otherwise, if you're managing the expectations of your financial partner or who has invested in you, if that is going to be 90% of your time, then you are not spending the time properly, because your experience, your expertise needs to be spent on developing the product and developing the business. Or get lucky. You should have the right combination, like we had Narattur Raghavan as the angel investor. Most important thing, believe in yourself. I told you at the beginning also that you heard Professor Rao, you heard Ravi Kumar, you heard me. Now don't do something just because we told you. This is not gospel. This is to provoke your thinking. You have to be convinced. Think about it. You can reject some of the ideas, but think about it, and what you think is right you should do. Because at the end of the day, if let's say your enterprise goes down the tube, you cannot tomorrow stand up and say, no, Narayan gave a lecture, I followed his prescription and this is why it went down the tube. Success will also be yours. So you can own up to everything, right? And of course you need some luck. Some providence is always needed. But you need to be putting in your heart and mind into it so that you can realize whenever there is a lucky. I cannot stop close without showing you this cartoon. Of course, entrepreneurship, building a business is a tough journey, but for those who have it in them, it is actually a very enjoyable journey. You should enjoy the journey. I like the title of Ravi Kumar's talk, enjoy the journey. That is nice. It's not just the end point that you should enjoy. You should enjoy everything. And you will get opportunities to meet a lot of different kinds of people, and they will also judge you while you can also judge them. So when you start off, you may have a simple thinking, because I keep looking at my first business plan Excel sheet. And then you thought you will do this, I will develop transgenic plants, I will make them resistant to this disease, and then finally I will become a 1,000 crore company. That's your objective, right? So what do they have? I have the tools that I need. Here it is depicted as a cycle, but I have my scientist friends, I have an expert in selection, I have an expert in agrobacterium culture, I have all those tools, I have built a laboratory, and then if I keep cycling nicely, I will reach there. But you know what is reality? You heard it from different people, and this is a visual depiction of it. That's how the ultimate journey will look. You will quickly realize that the tools you had, the cycle is absolutely useless, because the first obstacle you face is not a straight line, a nice road. It will be a big ditch with all kinds of things. Then you need to get a new tool, maybe a ladder or a boat, or you should learn swimming. But then finally the destination is right here. And if you don't give up at any of these stages, that's when you really get up to there. And that requires a lot of self-confidence and self-assurance. You may go wrong, but then when you are embarking on an entrepreneurship journey or a startup journey, there are so many unknowns. You know that there is based on certain logic or based on what you know, you think there is a possibility of getting there. Mark my words, there is a possibility of getting there, but there is a possibility of falling by the wayside also. It is not an assembly line, like you start with these parts, at the end of it I will get a car. No. It is research. Why do you have to and search? That means you don't know where it is. So it involves research, it involves innovation. So be clear about it. That is why many people we have used to because we have this sensitivity about failures. People have tended to prefer a trading approach, which is more simpler. I buy something from him for 10 rupees, I sell it to you for 15 rupees, I make a margin of 5 rupees. And maybe 1 or 2 rupees I may pay as rent for my shop, so it's straightforward thing. But the entrepreneurial journey is a little more complex. There are uncertainties in it, but they are not insurmountable. What I want to take away from this talk is that you should look at it positively. Those who have embarked on it, give your full this one to it. And one another point where I slightly differ, at least in the West, and I think India also will become like that. Silicon Valley, and there are some areas which are actually pockets of entrepreneurship. So if somebody has failed in an enterprise, they are preferred as employees because they know what mistakes you should not make or how to go around the mistakes. So it is not a stigma. So it's like selecting a PhD guy compared to an MSc guy. So if you have not failed in a business, then you are only an MSc guy. So if you have tried to develop a business and you didn't work out, I am already giving you additional marks as a PhD guy because I already experienced it. So that's it, my dear friends. I think so. That is to show never give up. I think that's important, right? Thank you. I think you want to change the battery of this because this is already going slow.
Unless there is an impending question.
I think we are very close to 1:30 when you should be closing.
I know, that's why I said there is no impending question. Let's give a big round of applause to Dr. Narayanan for his excellent talk. How can I go without the photograph? It was when you were in your without the mustache. This is the best photograph you could get of yours. You don't know which photograph you like. Thank you. Thank you. I know we are approaching the lunchtime. We have 10 more minutes of time. And may I request, in the past 2 years, I'm sure the entrepreneurs of BioNEST have made their own journeys. And may I request Dr. Uday Saxena to come and give a few words about his journey at the BioNEST. And I leave the podium open for the other entrepreneurs and CEOs of the companies to give their point of view, please. Okay.
Thank you, Sri. First of all, thank you for having all the speakers. It was truly inspirational to hear Dr. Yogeswara, Ravi, as well as Narayanan. This is, you can read a review about how to build a business, or you can listen to people who have actually done it. And it was very inspirational, just sitting there for me. And I've done this 4 times. This is not the first time I'm being an entrepreneur. And the fact that I still continue to learn about how to be an entrepreneur is actually a testament to how well all of you presented today. So thank you very much for that. I've been at BioNEST since October of 2018. And to be honest, the only word I have is it's been thoroughly enjoyable. I love coming to work. I used to work at drills before, and I only used to go 2 days a week there. And now I come here every day. So that alone tells you, and I can sit at home and do most of my work, I can sit at home and do even now. But I love to come to work every day because it's just the environment is fantastic. I'm learning, I'm interacting with people, I'm bouncing ideas off. Management is very kind, listens to us. So I really don't have, yesterday Dr. Reddanna was telling me that, can you say a few things? And I said, I really don't have anything bad to say yet about BioNEST. I actually chose BioNEST. I had 5 other incubation sites I looked at before I chose this. And one of them actually offered me free rent if I was going to write grants with their investigators. And still I chose this. So I did my homework before choosing it, just not because I knew Professor Reddanna that I came here, but a lot of things that went into it. I mean, one thing is you can interact with faculty. I don't know, Bindu Madhav Reddy is not here, but I bounce a lot of ideas off of him. Secondly, we get to hear speakers, who come to the university. You can just take 3 flights of stairs, and I'm listening to key opinion leaders, as you said, of different topics. So the whole ambience and the ecosystem being at the university is fantastic. So I want to thank Dr. Reddanna, as well as I guess Yogeswara is the mind behind all this. You're truly doing a great service. I mean, it might not go recognized 10 years from now, but I'm telling you that if I'm ever successful, I'll make sure I recognize both of you generously. So seriously, I'll do that. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, our valuation is quite low now, and Narayanan will tell you it's not to give. Yeah, sure. But I have a couple of suggestions. One, I think, suggestion I had, and I think it's going to be implemented, is to have a monthly, like a journal club, where all the incubatees get together, and not just science. We can discuss a new technique or new idea or anything, but just I think we need a forum where all of us can get together in a structured manner over lunch or something. And I think the first 10 minutes of that could be an admin saying, this is not working, that is not. Right now we do it through WhatsApp, which is great, but I think a lot of times things get lost in translation. Just last week, there was an exchange of emails on internet that got lost in translation, I think so. Maybe a monthly journal club with, Sri, this is for you, with first 10 minutes of admin discussion on, does something need to be fixed or not? I think it'll be very useful for the incubatees to have that. If you think making, yeah. Fantastic. Yeah, I think, see, this is exactly, the management is so receptive, unlike my previous places where I have incubated, so this is fantastic. The other idea I have, I think is more social, is to have a family day, because my daughter often wonders, you go away and you don't come back, where do you go? What is BioNEST? So I actually brought her, and Sri was kind enough to allow me to bring her one day and show. I think once a year, if you can, maybe today on a foundation day, have a family day, followed by lunch in the beautiful pagodas that you have, then I think that will be really nice, because families are, they need to be part of the journey, and the only way they can be is that they come, because this is very new for them. Other than that, I have really enjoyed myself. I hope I never have to leave BioNEST, but hopefully we'll be successful and we'll move on. But thank you very much for being there for us pretty much every single day. So thank you. Yeah.
So I think wonderful suggestion was regular meeting. I have found that in addition to collegiality and stuff that you do, you may actually find that in terms of business, there could be a partner for you within your group itself. And you can find those people with different complementary skills, and that will actually add to the output of the
Biotech Technology Business Incubation Center was set up. In fact, I was involved in setting up of this incubation center. And the focus of this Technology Business Incubation Center has been on pharma and chemistry sectors.
Come, walk with me. I'll show you around the labs that we have. These are the incubated companies the University of BioNEST has it. So first company we have here is Vectrogen Biologicals, and another company is called Algen Biotechnology. These two companies actually focus on making metabolites for healthcare through natural processes like algae.
I'm Dr. Tanuja Krishnamurthy. I'm the director and co-founder of Vectrogen Biologicals Private Limited. This is Mr. Lalit Rajiv. He's also the co-founder and director of Vectrogen, and this is an intern, Ms. Anuja Ashok.
I did my PhD
At Vectrogen, we are focusing on natural metabolites as alternatives to harsh chemicals that are being used rampantly in most of our products, in personal care as well as in nutraceuticals and in animal feed as well. Vectrogen Biologicals focuses on natural metabolites, and we are focusing on algae to extract these metabolites, especially antioxidants, sunscreens.
I started coming to BioNEST after I completed my PhD. So this journey is completely different. Instead of, I am now fully convinced that I did a best thing by not joining a postdoc and coming for this startup journey. Thank you.
Good morning to all. I am Reddanna. Me and my colleague Sreedhara, we started incubated a company, Vaidya Biotech, in ASPIRE-BioNEST. First of all, I congratulate to whole BioNEST team for celebrating second Foundation Day. I am very happy to be a part of it. And special thanks to Professor Reddanna sir and Yogeswara sir and Sreedhara sir. They are very good mentors. Really, their suggestions helping us to a lot. I got 2 grants, BIG grants, and I established good lab, and now I'm doing well. Once again, I congratulate to whole BioNEST team and all startup companies. Thank you.
And Sreedhara was a postdoc here. While she just completed, she started her company and then incubated with us. Anybody else? Okay, I think if there are any questions to Narayanan also, we can ask other. Yeah. If there are none, I think we invite Professor Prasad to propose vote of thanks formally and concluding remarks. Mainly concluding remarks.
I think definitely BioNEST is doing very well. Congratulations. Sreedhara, Reddanna garu, Yogeswara garu. Of course, I am also part of the team. But by the time I joined, most of the things are in place. One thing I would like to share is, when we are organizing such events, it is mostly for the benefit of the incubatees. But what I am little concerned is about the attendance. When people like Professor Arun Agrawal, Professor A.R. Reddy, Dr. My cousin brother, or we call it unidentical twins, Uday Saxena, can spend so much time with all their experience, pressing meetings, when they can sit here. Why many of the incubators are absent here? Can't we spend about 3-4 hours once in a year for attending such important events? Right? Where are all the CEOs? Okay, put that apart. See, like Vice Chancellor was telling, basically, for the last couple of years, the university is putting a lot of emphasis on creating the ecosystem and enabling mechanisms in the university. Vice Chancellor also said one thing. See, when the NIRF rankings are released, most of the times, when IITs are put together, we are mostly in 11th or 12th in the place. If you exclude them, we are normally 3rd or 4th in the thing. Where is the difference? Among the universities, we are 3rd or 4th. When you are putting the IITs, etc., we are 11th or 12th in the rankings. This is all because of 3 things: patents, technology transfers, entrepreneurship events, whatever you are organizing. We are slightly lagging behind in these 3 parameters. That is why we are 11th or 12th, coming immediately after the IITs. Right? What we are trying for the last couple of years is just filling that gap. And we are hoping that with the BioNEST and other 2 incubators, and that reminds me, most of the time, when you are organizing such events, most of the times BioNEST gets more projection because these other two are in the other buildings, right? But let me tell you, they are doing equally good. TBI, we have 2-3 success stories. Tide, we have 2-3 success stories. And like Vice Chancellor was referring, all you need is couple of success stories to give more visibility to the university, TIU and everything. With these words, what I'm expecting, today we have seen two entrepreneurs, Dr. Narayanan and Dr. Ravi Kumar. Maybe when BioNEST is about 10 years old, we expect some of you to be on this dais and sharing your success stories with the Incubatees at that time. With this, I'll stop here. Thank you all.
So let me formally thank Professor Dr. Narayanan and Dr. Ravi Kumar for coming all the way and then sparing their time with us. And of course, Dr. Yogeswara is always willing to be there and share his expertise with all. And special thanks to our Vice Chancellor who came and addressed the gathering, and our Pro-Vice Chancellor for sitting all through. And special thanks to Professor Agrawal for being with us. And most important is the audience. I think specifically Uday and many other incubatees and the interns and employees in the incubation center. And this job is not will not be successful without the key players like Sreedhara, Anil, Ramakrishna, Kushwant, and his team. So they have been putting up a lot of efforts in the last few days to make it a grand success, because we have a series of events lined up and we are gearing up for 4th March. There is Ella Prakada Subbarao Technopreneurship lecture series where there is a boot camp in the morning and then in the afternoon there is a lecture or fireside chat by Dr. Balasubramanian and moderated by Dr. Ananda Govindaluri. Hope all of you will be participating in that. And with that, I thank you one and all.